actually, these are not known, but 1.6 million francs at the time. But that was the lead currency. Well, they go ahead and they fight the war with England, and it lasts exactly 7 years, so it's now 1782. It started early, July 4th, and ended in 1782. In 1782, you have the Treaty of Paris, the Articles of Confederation, and the Bill of Rights are created. The Treaty of Paris was written in 85% verb and gives the United States back to England. Only trouble is the people didn't know how to read and write. Now, in 1776, good old Benjamin Franklin, under a $100 bill, was the first Postmaster General. He was also an English esquire. He signed the Treaty of Paris. John Jay, Henry Clay, and Benjamin Franklin were the three attorneys. One French and two English attorneys were involved with the Treaty of Paris, giving England jurisdiction over the Americans. But the people didn't know it.
Yeah, that was by intent.
Yeah, that was by intent. Now, the first postmaster in 1776 had a job assignment. The postmasters were given the responsibility of contract. That's all he said. In 1776, when they were writing the Declaration of Independence, Benjamin Franklin says, well, the only responsibility I want as the postmaster is to be responsible for contract. And they said, hey, fine, you got your own printing company, that'll work. And I did a radio show the other night. The lady comes on there who was interviewing me, and she says, well, Benjamin Franklin was just a pressman. And they were, I said, no, he was an English attorney. He was here in disguise. Because when he signed the Treaty of Paris, he addressed himself as an esquire. So he was here as a spy from England, real Ben. He wasn't. So then in 1776, he set this thing up so that the Secretary of the Treasury was under the Postmaster, and the Secretary of Defense was also under the Postmaster because he was responsible for all contracts. Now, the contract is what enlists the armed forces, and the contract is responsible to make the money to pay the military. So everything had to come under the Postmaster. So Benjamin Franklin, who was the first president of the United States, was elected. The Postmaster has more power. So in 1776, good old Ben sets the whole thing in motion. And then in 1782, the Treaty of Paris gives it back to England. He was there to make sure that no matter what happened in the war, that England would still get the Americans. So the United States can't pay France the $1.6 million, so they filed domestic bankruptcy for $2 million because with interest now, this thing came into, it was now 2 million francs that occurred. So they filed a domestic bankruptcy. Domestic bankruptcy is 7 years. Add another 7 years and you got 1789. September 17th. Rothschild comes over and buys the bankruptcy from France. So now the 2 million is now 3 million. Only trouble is now we're doing it with English money. So in 1789, the Constitution of the United States is not a Bill of Rights. It is a bankruptcy document, a banking document, how to run the United States so that the money is collected to pay back Rothschild. So in 1789, the bill, nobody would sign it, say it was going to bankruptcy. So they took the Bill of Rights, the Articles of Confederation, and they put it on top of the bankruptcy. Just like today, if you want to get a budget through, they put all these gun control bills on top of the budget. If you want the money, you got to sign away your guns. And so, this is the way that things have been, they've been doing business for 220 years now. So they took the Bill of Rights, put it on top of the bankruptcy, and the people signed the Bill of Rights and inadvertently going into bankruptcy for 70 years. Now, domestic bankruptcy is 7 years, international bankruptcy is 70. So now we got a 70-year of bankruptcy, and 70 and 89 comes up to 1859 at 9/17. All debts are forgiven. It's called the year of Jubilee after 70 years of international bankruptcy. So now that the United States came out of bankruptcy in 1859, there's a 45-day moratorium. This has been going on for over 2,000 years. The 45 days stipulates that once the trust is vacated, the bankruptcy trustee leaves. The bankruptcy continues for 45 days. If the bankruptcy does not appoint a new trustee within 45 days, the grantor, who is the United States, gets back all the money that was granted into the bankruptcy, into the trust. Because whenever there's a trust, when you file bankruptcy today, you hire a trustee. The trustee runs the bankruptcy. Same thing happened here. The United States filed bankruptcy, so England then became the trustee. So in 1859, England vacates on September 17th. The United States is left alone to its own demise. Now the North, here we'll put a little map here. Here's England, the Great Lakes, the Mason-Dixie line, Florida, Florida and the Gulf of Mexico. Okay, the state lines go like this here, to the Mississippi River. The South, on the other hand, was under the Articles of Confederation, and they had tobacco and cotton, gold and silver, cash crops for 100 years. They had slavery. So the South was rich with gold and silver. They were a sovereign nation. Only the northern 13 colonies were in bankruptcy with England, not the South. So in 1859, England leaves, and the Congress gets together for the Americas, and the North says to the South, we need your money. The South says, no, we're not going to give you it. He says, well, then we're going to tax you since you don't have any representation. You just came out of a bankruptcy, you're a sovereign nation, and we're the sovereign nation. We've got Articles of Confederation, you've got Articles of Confederation. You've got your Constitution. So what then happened was the Civil War breaks out. The North goes to England and France and says, we will renew the bankruptcy with Rothschild, provided you borrow us the money to go ahead and fight the war. We'll capture all the gold and silver to South, pay off the bankruptcy, and it'll be a wash. The trouble is, they weren't prepared for the South's aggressiveness to defend themselves. And 1 million people got killed, which cost a lot more lives and property damage than the United States had budgeted for. And it wasn't until Lincoln turned the blacks against the South, and they were, ladybug, your house is on fire. That's where they came out of. Because while the South was out fighting the North, the blacks were fighting the South also. And so they doubled their army overnight by making this, saying all the blacks are free if you fight for the North. And they were tired of the oppression. And so that broke the back of the South. So when they went to capture the South, there was no gold, there was no silver. And so the United States had to renew the bankruptcy. The bankruptcy was rolled back to 1859. Because they renewed the bankruptcy and it was going to capture the South. The South is under captured nation status. Even to this day, they are still under captured nation status. Remember that in Alabama, when they put the Confederate flag atop the Capitol, and in Atlanta, they had the Confederate flag on top of the Capitol, and it flew for 3 years. Up until 3 years ago, when I wrote the program, until January of 1998, when we came out with punctuation. The punctuation stipulated that every treaty, trust, and contract on the planet is fraudulently written. So therefore, the South lost the Articles of Confederation because they were fraudulently written, and the North, again, could say, repatriation status, take down the flag, and the flag came down. That's what brought the flag down, disqualified the contracts. So the South now, and the North, they write a new Constitution. It's not the Constitution of the United States of America. It's the Constitution of the United States in 1865, after the war was over. However, the bankruptcy started in September 17, 1859. And 70, you got 1929 and September 17. All right. In 1905, in the middle here, titles came in. The titles then went ahead and said, they broke this 45 days up. They said you got to give a 10-day notice when you leave, and you got to give a 5-day notice before you're going to, before anything becomes law. All right? September 17th and 10 days are 10 working days. Weekends don't count. So 4, 10 is 14, 14 is 17 is 31. There's only 30 days in September. That brings us up to October 1st. October 1st is the fiscal new year Y2K for the United States government. If you look at it, October 1st is our fiscal new year for the federal. July 1st is fiscal new year for all 50 states. So, if you add 45 days to September 17th, you get November 2nd. November 2nd is the first Tuesday in November, which is Presidential Election Day, 1999. That's when they have to elect a new trustee for the trust. Another thing is that in 1929 we didn't have computers. So 5 days before November 2nd, the trustee had to give notice that it was going to close the banks and credit unions and pull out of the United States. October 29, 1929, stock market crash. That's what set it off. They closed all the banks. And everybody's confidence in the banking system was destroyed. Even though within the 45 days before November 2nd, 1929, the government renewed the bankruptcy for another 70 years, all confidence in the United States was destroyed because with the banks closed for 5 days, nobody maintained more than a 7-day food supply, which completely disrupted all communications. We didn't have radio, we didn't have TV, there were just newspapers. And bad news travels fast, one tells another. And it swept across the United States to telegraph on the bank collapse, which was nothing to replace the bank collapse. So confidence in putting your money in the banks, people wouldn't do it anymore. Whatever you had in your pocket was it. Everybody worked with cash. Personal checks were not accepted. And so for the next 10 years we had the Great Depression, but we were still, the federal government renewed the bankruptcy in 1929.
What date again? What date was the date when the trustee was changed?
No, they renewed the bankruptcy on September 17, 1929.
That's September 17th.
Yes. Then you add 70 years to that, and you get 1999, September 17th, by the way, that's my birthday. 50 this year. So, September 17th, 1999, 8 weeks ago, Clint got on the radio after I'd been doing this at my seminar since February, and he said, well, ladies and gentlemen, I have news for you that we will have a $1 trillion surplus in the national treasury in September because all the debts were forgiven. The IRS and the International Monetary Fund has been seizing $8 trillion of trust money for the last 36 months. Well, 32 months. They took $1 trillion too much. And I figured with the increased interest on the debt, it was going to be $6.8 trillion, which left them a surplus of $1 trillion. They stole too much, so they had to put it back into the United States Treasury on September 17th. That's where the $1 trillion surplus comes from. In the year 2000, we will have a $3 trillion surplus, and in 2001, we will have a $5 trillion surplus. We do not have a debt with England anymore. Now, in the paper last week, Monday, it said that the government is trying to refinance their debt. That means that on September 17th, they don't come out of bankruptcy. They can if they renew the bankruptcy bankruptcy, will be back into debt for $6 trillion with England. 85% of all government officials are attorneys under parliamentary control with the Crown. So what they had to do now is they had to pass laws to create an environment where every senator, legislature, congressman, and judge were part of Parliament. So even though we came out of bankruptcy, they would vote the people back into bankruptcy as chattel. This is where my program has really been stepped up. We've gone global now. The fact that we've disqualified every treaty, trust, and contract and destroyed all of parliamentary fiction, which is strangling the whole planet and starving it off. And people are learning about this. And they're not going to stand still for the lie of the language. That's why they're able to seize the offshore trusts. That's why they're able to seize the offshore monies. Because everything was written in fictitious language. Because you guys have been in school since first grade. You have been taught to put adverbs in front of nouns to create a verb. You can't modify a noun with an adverb. And so what it does, the adverbs modify adjectives, adverbs, and verbs. By placing an adverb in front of a noun, it destroys it, turns it into a verb. You cannot modify a preposition with an adverb either. You put an adverb in front of a preposition, it turns it into a verb. Which means the article then becomes a verb also. The article gets turned into an adverb, which now takes the noun in the prepositional phrase and turns it into a verb. The phrase would be as by the car. As would be the adverb, making by into a verb. Does an adverb make the car a verb. Instead of saying by the car, which is a prepositional phrase, makes the car a noun, destroys it. So they created this fraudulent language to cover up the bankruptcy. Then the language of the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and the Bill of Rights was also written in verb, so that the people never had any rights. But they had to teach people in school how to read and write in verb format, so that they wouldn't suspect the fact that they had a fraudulent Declaration of Independence, a Bill of Rights, or a Constitution. And then they had to go ahead and keep the fraud going until they got everybody in place, and then they were going to capture it all at once. And that's what was supposed to happen this year on September 17th. Because this program has been so successful worldwide, the New World Order got caught with their pants down. And all of their treaties, trusts, and contracts were disqualified under fiction. And so now they had to start over. Our program is the truth. There's so many people that know about the truth now that the government is afraid that they're going to have a stampede. And now the government's put a virus out there to destroy the computers, the internet, anybody filing this kind of paperwork. They were prosecuting. There's too many good judges that understand what this is. They're actually giving us our day in court. The rest of the world, which is 96% of the population, has looked upon America now as being stupid, illiterate, and their inability to read and write, but they're the ones who run around with the guns and the clubs. So Russia can't compete because they just came out of their bankruptcy. They've been sovereign since 1988. Because Russia is a sovereign nation now, they're trying to get their capitalist system up and running. They're using, their language was also fictitious. But they're having treaty disputes with all of their neighbors because of the fraudulent language. Everyone on the planet is aware of it, because we send books out to everybody. So now that everyone can challenge everyone else's contract as being fraudulent, everybody's got a perception about it, but at the same time they're learning what the truth is. They're learning how to write this thing in the truth. So Russia wants to go ahead and put this thing on TV, on C-SPAN, worldwide in one program, and let everybody on the planet know about it and bring it up to speed. And that's what they want me to do, is present a program on C-SPAN.
When will this happen?
4 weeks.
September 17th.
Exactly. They want to coordinate this thing on September 17th, so that the same day that the United States comes out of becomes sovereign, that they're going to say they're practicing a apartheid and genocide against the people by using fraudulent and fictive language. It's a political ploy. They can't compete with the United States militarily, so they want to do it from they want to take the détente. They want to take the pen and say, we are the givers, the bringers of peace. And that's how they disarm the war machine on the planet, by letting everybody know how to get the peace by using truthful language.
Where was the truthful language ever at? You said it was concealed for so long?
8,000 years as hieroglyphics. Hieroglyphics was written, was picture writing.
And now you could read that forward and backwards?
Oh yeah, I'll show you what I mean. You got man. Man is a noun. Bow is a noun. Arrow is a noun. Shield is a noun. But what do you got? You got fighting. You got conflict. Fighting is the verb. He's shooting. He's defending. Those are your two verbs. Now you've got a story. You get two people in conflict. And so by the picture is worth 1,000 words. And whether you look at it frontwards or backwards, truth is written in a circle. And because a picture is no more than an idea, it's an action, the word thinking is the only noun that is a verb simultaneously. It's the only word on this planet that holds two identities. Because you can't be thinking as a condition of verb without it being established as a condition of state, which is a noun. And nothing happens without thinking. You can't justify a single act or a thing because somebody didn't think first to create it. So therefore, thinking is what we call the will of intent. And it is the thinking capacity that gets put on trial. What is in the heart is caused by what's in the mind. So thinking is what is always on trial. You take this here, you take a hoe, a basket, and a tool. Now there are two farmers sowing and plowing by moving two lines. You still got two nouns. You got sowing and you got plowing. Those are your verbs. So you got your story. And depending on how many times they show this individual or the other hieroglyphic symbols, it's your multiples of how many people are represented or how big the crop was. And it tells a story in hieroglyphics. It gives instructions how much food has to be raised for how many people, how the seasons are going to function. Because people run out of food. If you don't put the food up, you're going to starve during the lean times and you'll be extinct. So these were, in hieroglyphics, were instructions on how man must live. Apartheid.
You said apartheid and something else on this one.
Oh, genocide. Apartheid. That means to discriminate against the government, to discriminate against the people. Now, how does apartheid become relevant, and why are we in the World Court? Why are we in Russia? And how do we get into the sanctions? How do we get to another area of the planet? Well, this is the first time in man's history that one nation has sued other nations. Other nations have sued for peace. But this is the first time that we, the people, have learned how to go from country to country and sue one country in another country. It's called law of the flag. Now, the sanctuary of the bar, I'm going to call this the court, bar, for contract. Contracts. Another word is constitutions. Constitutions and contracts are the same word, just a difference, just a synonym with each other. Now,
What did you see apartheid was?
apartheid is discrimination against the people by the government. All right, there's a thing called disabilities. Disabilities Act. Now, the Disabilities Act says that if a person is restricted from seeing, from hearing, from speaking, from writing, that or from communicating in any way, shape, or form, transportation, it creates a disability on the individual. If the government is responsible for creating an intentional disability, it's in violation of the Disabilities Act, which now activates the military. The military is sworn to defend and protect the citizens from a disability. If the civilian government under a yellow fringe flag, controlled by England, causes a disability on the citizens, then it becomes the jurisdiction of your provost marshal, your adjutant general, judicial adjutant general, in the military to take action over the civilian authorities. The civilian authorities have led we the people to believe that they were in charge. They are not. They are a foreign entity under the Foreign Sovereign Immunity Act here in the United States, and they've got the people so buffaloed by using the sheriff's department as their strong arm to arrest and put people in jail for contempt. They pass laws saying we are immune from what we do, that all government officials are immune from what they do. They pass laws that said we the judges and the attorneys can break the law and don't have to answer for it, where the sovereign citizens do. So this here became a double standard, just like they had in England, where the lords could go out and rape the people, but the people had a defense. They had the standard taken. The movie Braveheart was a classic example of where the people were called chattel, and the lords would come into the villages and rape the women, and the men couldn't do anything because the soldiers stood by and let it happen. Well, that's not true anymore, which started Ireland and the Irish and English wars. And then from the Irish and English wars came the Magna Carta, 1215, but that was written in fiction also. I corrected it. It's 85% fraud. So the language of England, the English language, was created as a fraudulent program for 1,500 years now. Rome set that up 2,000 years ago, right after Christ. Because Caesar wanted to be God, so he obstructed the language. And put this whole mess in play. Okay, now when a disability is created, you take a noun and turn it into a verb, and all your rules, regulations, communication skills, and pleading, that's a disability, because the government is saying if you don't speak in verb, that you can't be in our fiction. Well, we don't want to be in fiction. We're sovereign. We're in the truth. We want to be in truth. So we go back and we sue the government for fraudulent conveyance of language for the extortion of rights, creating apartheid against the people under the Disabilities Act. The Disabilities Act now gives us the power to call out the military to arrest the judges. Well, 2 weeks ago, 3 federal judges were arrested in Honolulu, Hawaii, for apartheid and genocide against the Hawaiian people under the Disabilities Act, because the Hawaiians went to the military, JAG officer at Pearl Harbor Naval Base, and said they viewed nouns as verbs causes a disability of communication and injured us. The JAG officer looked at it and said, "You're right." They arrested the 3 federal judges and took them to federal prison without a trial because they had forensic evidence. It was a slam dunk because they signed the orders for genocide. So they automatically had confessed on the paperwork, and we were taken to federal prison. And they used the lawsuit that I drafted for Matthew and Naomi to do it. So things are starting to heat up. Now, another lawsuit was filed in Russia 6 weeks ago. That's over by North Korea, the only free port that Russia has. Vladivostok. I can write it, I can't read it. So anyways, one of our guys in Alaska, he went to, about 30 years ago, he was in school. And when he was in school, he went to school with this judge that's over in Russia. Well, they continued to be friends. While he went back to Russia, he was over in the States here, just going to school as an exchange student. They stayed friends. Well, he wound up as a federal district judge in Russia. So, when he had this lawsuit, he filed it over in Russia with this judge. The judge looked at my paperwork on how to set up the sanctuary of the bar under law and flag. So what they did is they took the Russian flag down and they put the Star and Spangled Banners up. They put the American flag up in a Russian court and declared it to be an American territory bar, and then gave a judgment against the United States for apartheid and genocide against the people, because the forensic evidence, he took over 2 inches worth of paperwork from the lawsuit that he filed here in the United States. It was turned down in circuit court, turned down in district court, turned down in the Supreme Court, so he boxed it all up and sent it over to Russia. They looked at all of it and said, well, they're using nouns as verbs under my program. They certified it, they got their English teachers out, the translators out, and they all came back with the same thing. Yeah, they're using nouns as verbs. You can't modify a noun with an adverb. So all the American judges, American courts created an apartheid under the Disabilities Act against him, against Mark. So Mark sent this program over there, showed him, we wrote it up, showed them how to go ahead and put up an American flag. They did so. They gave us a $50.9 million win. They then sent the documents back to us in the United States, 12 copies, file stamped by the Russian judge under law of the flag. The Russian judge and the 3 attorneys that researched and put this program together were then concerned and went to The Hague. July 13, 1998, The Hague met in a 4-hour trial going over the paperwork, voted 15-0 to award the $50.9 million if this program was accurate and correct. The lawsuits that are in this book are properly put together. So then, one of the Russian judges that was on The Hague calls up Moscow and says, one of your boys has punched a hole through the world. So the Russian Supreme Court calls the lawsuit back to Russia. The Russian Supreme Court spends 2 weeks tearing it apart. They came back with, you can bring as many of these over to Russia as you want. It's truthfully written, and they gave us a $50.9 million award also. But they now want Mark, I, and Jeff to fly to Moscow and testify to the law procedures and how this program works. They want to question us on all the things that they don't see. Where does the foundation come from? No, that's voicemail. Don't worry about it. So, in 4 weeks, we'll get our visas and passports together and go over there. We're going to teach them. Now, there's been, we've had 3 communiques since they've invited us. And the other people that have defaulted are not being invited because they're default. The program is also going to have a second tier effect on treaties, trusts, and contracts with Russia and their neighbors. This will be worth trillions of dollars of trade to them to write truthful contracts with their neighbors, and also make the military stand down because the people won't be so agitated.
Right.
Because the people are also getting this thing worldwide on shortwave broadcast. It keeps going out every night. My students all over the United States that own shortwave transmitters are just taking these tapes and broadcasting on open channel all over the country. They're just taking segments of it, they're broadcasting by speech in this program, and it's being anybody's got a shortwave transmitter all over the planet that's getting this information. And it's exponentializing itself. So they can't stop it. People are learning what truth is, and that's why they've got so much deception, or not deception, dissension. So So the people, the governments are now being faced with the fact that we've got to change the way we do business. We have to bring ourselves into a truth with the people that rise against us. Because the people will not follow a lie. A new world order, there's nothing wrong with a one world order. Right, you got freedom of religion, you got freedom of vote, freedom to travel, the right to raise your family. So there's the right to work. So you've got certain specifics that if the people are guaranteed these in a truthful scenario, no matter who you elect in office, that individual must maintain a position of absolute honesty or they won't get into office.
Well, you never established laws.
Well, the people that are in office under the yellow fringe flag, people, the general population is finding out what this means. A lot of them always thought it was pretty, not finding out the fact that they pledge allegiance to a foreign government. A government called fiction, where they obstruct language and practice apartheid against the people. And so this is what is going to bring this all together. Now I'm going to go through some of the formulas and how these programs work. We'll first take the 1 on 10. Make a math problem. 1/2 plus 1/3 plus 1/6 equals. Well, you can't do that. First rule of English is that you must be there must be a single thought in a sentence. That you can only have a single idea in a sentence, and you can only have a single tense in the sentence. The same rule applies to math. You must have a single denominator. So you can't work this problem out. So here we've got the future, here we've got the past, and here we've got the present. So if we bring this all current, we've got 3/6 plus 2/6 plus 1/6 equals, now we've got at least common denominator, present tense. There's a timeline. Nothing exists in the past. All things exist in present tense stacked upon themselves, and nothing exists in the future. If you have something in the past, you use the preposition from. If you're going to the future, you use the preposition to. Neither of those two words exist in real time, so therefore they disqualify anything that they're used in writing, treaties, trusts, and contracts. If you look at your trusts, if you look at your contracts, if you look at your treaties with these words in there, you were deceived because you have no present tense jurisdiction to have that document official. A court only exists in present time. But because attorneys only use from and to, and they work in the sanctuary of the bar, which is under the yellow fringe flag. How do you capture a flag? Remember a kid's game? Capture the flag? You put fringe around it. You put decorations on the flag. You change the condition of this contract. Now, what is a contract? Well, the flag is no more than a symbol. If you have an American flag, well, I know we refer to Title 4 U.S.C. 1, but in fact, the flag is no more than a symbol of the contract. This contract flag says, this is the flag of freedom. This is the flag of the freedom of the contract. That's what it symbolizes, freedom of the contract. They've been fighting all these years. They're trying to say that this year is different. That it is they're trying to put a label on it. It's not the flag of freedom, that you can go out and do anything you want. It's the flag of the freedom of the contract. And by placing yellow fringe around it, they change the condition of the freedom and say, no, this is the flag that the freedom has been captured. It's under chattel. It's in bankruptcy. So the judge has declared himself to be the trustee of the bankruptcy as an extension of Parliament from England to collect taxes. That's why the fines come into play in court, because he's here to collect taxes to pay back the bankruptcy. So this is where they put the yellow fringe up there. They deny the contract they deny the Constitution in the sanctuary of the bar because this is a foreign country. Every single bar in every single city, county, state, and nation is an independent sanctuary that is only controlled by the law of the flag. And I can go right down here to Clearwater. I can put up a Russian flag and declare a Russian court and hold Russian court under their rules and regulations. But the minute an American flag walks into that bar, it will capture that national flag. Because the American flag is sovereign to this soil, just like the Russian flag is sovereign to its soil. Now the law is very clear about the law of the flag. The sovereign flag cannot sue its parent. It cannot sue itself. It should not. Now, this comes from the Bible. You should not testify false witness against yourself. So the flag, if it's placed in an American bar, cannot sue that its own country, its own sovereignty. That's why they put yellow fringe up in the sanctuary of the bar, because now you've got a foreign country suing the United States. That's how the judgments are awarded and passed down. Because the acts are taking place out here under the flag, people walking with the flag, and the yellow fringe flag being a foreign national flag, now says that this is a foreign country and issues an order against the Americans for payment. If you have an American flag in the sanctuary, though, captures a foreign national flag and turns it back into a constitutional court. That's where the sovereign gets its immunity in the foreign country, because we're on sovereign soil. This won't work in Russia. You go to Russia, you put up an American flag on your chest that says that you are sovereign of the United States, but you are not a sovereign of Russia. So the Russian flag has jurisdiction over you. So what they did in Russia was they put the flag up in the court, joining with the sanctuary, turning the sanctuary into an American territory, because the paperwork had a flag on it also. So they had joinder under law of the flag. But because they're not on sovereign soil, they can issue orders against the sovereign soil of America. And that's the only way. When we did this, perfected this program, it said that all 250 nations, if they practice genocide or apartheid, can then sue any nation of the 249 others, sue that nation, and their people can get relief from all other nations against them. That's how the planet polices itself. So no one entity can get out of order.
So if we went into a courtroom that was about to act against us, and we changed the flag in that courtroom, you remove the power to act against you then? Is that the sovereign?
Right, when we put the flag up, that removes their ability to injure us.
Right.
And we are in control. Now, when you go into court and you wear a flag, and the judge is making a statement, you're saying, Your Honor, if you have my paperwork, the judge holds up your paperwork with the flag on it. You have, not only do you have a sanctuary, but you have planes, P-L-A-N-E-S. You have different planes within the sanctuary of the bar. And these different planes are independent countries within the sanctuary, levels of authority. We stand on the commons. The jury box is section 2, the witness box is 3, and the judge sits up on 4. The old game, King of the Hill. And that's what yeah, it's all about our kids' games. We did them as kids, but you never thought that this was a reality of we were mimicking parliamentary court. When you take the flag and you put it sort of the stripes are horizontal, like they hang behind Congress right now, that means that the contract of freedom is suspended because we're in bankruptcy. And so they're doing the pleadings of the bankruptcy trustee from England. That's what that means. And on September 17th, I expect to see the flag go like that, go horizontal again. That'll say that we're out of the bankruptcy.
Without the fringe.
Without the fringe has to come down also. Now,
The one in
Washington,
Congress doesn't have fringe, the one that's hanging.
Oh, yeah.
It does.
Both of them do. In the House and
but those are hanging. They don't hang with fringe. They only are this way with
They were hanging. When I was watching the impeachment proceedings they were hanging.
In this matter with fringe?
Not in the Senate, not in the House of Representatives. It is no fringe, but it's,
Okay, what happens
in the
here
areas.
there, now this is very important, this is symbolization. The law of the flag is what is making the contract, and they must publicly advertise this, because people speak all different languages and have all different intents. Is the condition of that flag that sets the condition of that court. Now, when Clinton was going to be tried that day, CNN, I was watching CNN, and what they didn't know was the camera was on. The judge comes walking out into the courtroom. He's got 3 gold bars on it.
Yeah, I just wanted that, I love that.
And on my phone, just immediately, he no more broke the TV screen, and like 10 seconds later, my phone started ringing. What's the 3 gold bars mean? Everybody's calling me from all over the country. I'm watching. So,
Flag off.
yeah, he was a military flag officer. And then the district attorney who was going to prosecute, he says, what about the sovereignty issue, Your Honor? And the judge turns and says, he's one of us. And the judge goes, that's what the judge said. The judge says, he's one of us. And the district attorney goes, yeah, that's right, he's one of us. Talking about Clinton, that he was a flag officer, he was in the military.
Okay.
They were having a military court-martial. And because they're under the bankruptcy, the military court-martial is the proper format. That's why they have yellow fringe flags. The president's flag is the yellow fringe flag with eagle and tassel. That means it's an Admiralty maritime contract in the bankruptcy. He is the bankruptcy trustee. They're having a bankruptcy military court-martial under postmaster. Who's the postmaster? He's your bailiff. He's a senior court barrister. I didn't see him in the audience, but I know the postmaster was there. He had to be there in order for this trial to take place. For Clinton to testify, the postmaster had to be there. Because he's responsible for all military jurisdictions. And because the president is being tried, he is the Illuminati, the man behind the scenes, trustee, overseer for the bankruptcy trustee in England. He's the overseer in the United States, the senior court barrister. He has jurisdiction over the judge. There's no judge in the United States that has jurisdiction over the postmaster. So he had to be there for the to prosecute the trustee, who is the president of the United States, Clinton, in the bankruptcy. These are all things you guys don't read about in your law books. Or you don't get taught in school.
They even commented on Rehnquist's stripes, and what was it said about it?
Oh, he likes
dug
the
up
style.
out of antiquity, or they
For the style thing, he thought it was
All the United States Supreme Court is under the postmaster. Postmaster sees over all jurisdictions of government, legislative, and judicial.
But you're saying the stripes were military.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
just a ranking, and so. But then this district attorney turns and the red light is on the TV camera. And they have broadcast that over CNN nationally where that conversation took place. It was supposed to be off camera, that was supposed to be confidential conversation. And they said more in that 1 minute than the whole trial combined, everything that took place in 1 year. Because that they gave top echelon information on camera to the whole American population, and they didn't know what they were hearing to see.
Did you tape it, man?
But enough people saw it that when I go to seminars and I do this, they go, yeah, I saw it,
I saw it too, I just don't remember that part.
They verify it for, they verify it in different seminars.
Well, okay, what that says is, these people, they have intent. They have criminal intent.
Criminal intent is what they're functioning on, the fraud.
That's right. So that means that, and think about how many documents they've signed, they've committed themselves.
Every single treaty, trust, contract, all 50 state constitutions, all U.S. constitutions and treaties and trusts are all written in the same verb language. Because the language has been taught for 1,500 years, it has intentionally violated the procedures that this is a pen. A pen is a noun. It is a noun as a procedure in all 5,000 languages. But this regime turned it into a verb by calling it the pen. Spanish, they'll say del pen, of the pen. Put a prepositional phrase in.
That was another question I was gonna have. In other languages,
Everybody,
because their assembly assumes the article as part of their text, okay? So their language is correct,
exactly.
and the English is not.
But in many cases, where they fall down is they put two nouns together. And the law is that you put a noun on top of a noun becomes an adjective, which means it becomes a presumption.
Right.
Which calls for modulation.
So there's a punctuation
They
issue.
drop right. The whole planet, all 250 nations drop punctuation in writing. Yeah, well, stylishly.
I collect stamps, and I collected stamps since the early 1960s. And I was looking through the Scott's stamp album, and all the old stamps from the United States would say United States or U period S period postage. You get up to about 1975,
It was
and it
71.
dropped around there, but I was just going by the pictures in the book. Instead of having the cent sign, they just had a C. And then you get up to about 1985, and it completely dropped the cents. And it just says, it doesn't say United States anymore, it says USA. No punctuation on the letter. So all you had is 33 USA, as opposed to years ago would say United States postage 3 cents. What was the time frames and reasoning behind it?
How do you boil a frog? Just drop them in hot water, they'll jump out. Put them in cold water, bring them up to boil, you cook them. So they have to change things very subtly, very slowly, so that people wouldn't even notice. Here, I'll show you something. Okay, that's our abbreviation for the United States of America, right? All right, all 26 letters in the English language are nouns. Now, this is a planet-wide procedure. Only nouns can be abbreviated. There is no abbreviation on this planet in any language for an adjective, an adverb, a pronoun, an article, a conjunction. There is only a noun can be abbreviated. All right? The lacks a preposition, so the becomes an adverb modifying the adjective united in past tense. States is a noun, of is an adverb because it lacks a article making America a verb. How do you abbreviate an America verb with an A noun? An S noun represents the S states, but the U noun can't represent a united adjective in past tense. It's a fraud. So, if we say of the unity, because united is a past tense adjective, you must go with the single tense noun, which is unity hyphen states, of the. Now this becomes a preposition, an article. Same thing here, we got a preposition and an article making America a noun. Now you've got a U noun for unity and an S noun for states and an A noun for America.
Unity.
Nouns,
Unity becomes a noun too, right?
unity is now a noun because there's a hyphen. It's a unity hyphen noun. Without the unity, without the hyphen, it would become an adjective, which then would become united, ED.
So you have noun and noun because of the hyphen.
Right, now we've got three nouns represented by the three nouns. Now you've got joinder. You must have joinder in order to have jurisdiction. And this here is the certification. When I showed that to 3 PhDs in English up at Atlanta, they go, he's right. It was improperly written.
So the current
And this also, the Postal Service, which is responsible for contract and the truth, has accepted the unity hyphen states of the America. Otherwise, we can sue the postal inspector as being the senior court barrister of the United States for the fictitious conveyance of language for the extortion of right, which carries a 10-year, $10,000 fine, which he didn't want to get involved with because it becomes an international issue, because the Postal Service is a global organization that has never gone bankrupt. It is the only sovereign on the planet. Because Earth is a vessel in a sea of space, we are a rock, which is spaceship Earth. We have a corporate structure on this planet. There are no political foundations. Everything is by contract. So the postal inspectors are in fact the Illuminati. The Illuminati is responsible for all contracts on the planet and all treaties and trusts. And because they have to maintain their treaty, their authority under the laws of contract to be in the truth, the postal inspector has to maintain a sovereignty on the planet to make war. Only a sovereign corporation can declare war on another sovereign corporation. Now, let's go back to World War II. The sovereign corporation of the Postal Service, Pearl Harbor, is not paying the proper freight to Japan. This goes on for like 5 years. The Japanese postal inspector, he's also irritated at the fact that he thinks he's being cheated by the United States because of the commerce flowing back and forth through Hong Kong, because not Hong Kong, Honolulu. Because Pearl Harbor is the hub of the Pacific, everything's got to go through the Hawaiians because it's too long of a trip. So the Japanese post office or postal service is also in charge of the Secretary of Treasury for Japan and the Secretary of Defense for Japan. So the postal inspector calls out the troops, prints up the money, and bombs Pearl Harbor, bombing the postal inspector of Pearl Harbor. The post office of Pearl Harbor calls up Washington, D.C. postmaster and says, the mail's been disrupted, call out the troops. So the postmaster immediately prints money selling bonds, war bonds, and then hires an army to go ahead and build an army to go ahead and make sure the mail goes through. The Pony Express and Overland Stage were attacked by the Indians. The postmaster called out the military to make sure the mail went through and set up posts all over the United States to go ahead and defeat the Indians because they were interfering with the delivery of the mail. The Indians did not have a postal service. So they were, even though they were native, they were part of the postal organization, the sovereignty that's gone planet-wide. So in 1945, when Little Boy was dropped in Hiroshima, and I've got the videotape at home, by the way, the postmaster of Honolulu walks up to the bomb just before they put it up, puts a $1 airmail stamp on it. He says, and he slaps it on there, and he says, just to make it legal, signs the bills of lading to deliver the bomb to Hiroshima. And a couple weeks later, he also signs and puts an airmail stamp to deliver airmail to Nagasaki, and signs the bills of lading because the postmaster is responsible for the delivery of the freight. Of course, the freight never got to its destination. It vaporized someplace around 5,000 feet above ground zero. But only the postmaster can declare war on a sovereign nation, who is also under the postmaster. So it was the postmaster of the United States declaring war on the postmaster of Japan. It had nothing to do with the political foundations of our leaders. The presidents are no more than puppets of the postmaster. However, all postmasters are appointed by the trustees under the president.
The trustees under the president.
The president of the United States is the trustee of the bankruptcy.
Oh, okay.
The bankruptcies are controlled by the postmaster at the Vatican. The Pope is the senior postmaster of the planet. He's pulling all the strings. In 1906, all the postmasters of all the nations got together look at your money, you'll see that in 1776, on your $1 bill, the Great Seal. This has all been laid out for you guys in black and white. On the Great Seal, here, I'll use your dollar bill here. Okay. On the $1 bill, you got Roman numerals. 1776. May 5th is the anniversary date when the Postal Service became a sovereign corporation in the United States. Benjamin Franklin was appointed first Postmaster General. That's what he was. Washington was the president trustee in 1789. Benjamin Franklin was the first president of the United States, not Washington. It's just that because he was president of the Postal Service, he then was in charge. So with the contract, manipulated this whole dog and pony show. 1782, he did a treaty with Paris, and he gave it all back to England, which gave him this power. And it was all deception.
I ran across a U.S. Supreme Court case that was 1803, and I forgot.
Madison was the man who was involved with that.
But it said, it stated in there where the land reverted back to the ocean of the crown.
Now, James Madison was a Mason, and he worked for the crown. He was a parliamentary judge. Mason was a traitor to the United States. He worked for England, not for the United States, because in 1803 they were under bankruptcy from the bankruptcy trustee, and the postmaster was assigned by the trustee, and the judiciary was under the postmaster.
George Mason?
James Mason.
James
Madison was their second Supreme Court judge, senior Supreme Court judge, and he made a lot of revolutionary decisions. However, they were all written in verb. And if people wanted to accept the ideas that were put forward, they had to accept the fictitious language to go along with it. Just like if you want to get a bad bill through, you put it under money because people want the money. They're greed. What the Crown did, what the trustees did, is they played on the greed of man. The greed for rights, the greed for benefits, the greed for money. And no matter how many obstructions of justice they created, they always played it under the greed using fraudulent language. This is how you control people. You go after their greed, the underbelly.
Did they understand the procedure to writing, like
oh, yes.
George Washington and stuff?
Sure.
Because a lot of their, it would seem a lot of their intent was
I'll tell you what, when you guys drive back from Washington, get off at Racine and go to the Racine County Courthouse. On the steps of the Racine County Courthouse, in prepositional phrases only, there are over 60 words put on one side and 60 words on the other side, carved in stone in 1906. Funny, in 1906 comes into play, that's when the post office. That was the original post office building. Also, the treaties in 1906 were cut in at the Vatican. When they built that post office, Masons were responsible to build it. Masons were responsible for the writing of the language that is set in stone on both sides of the walls of the courthouse. But that was the original post office, if you look at the history. But they cut away everything that ever said it was a post office on that building. But everything it says there talks about justice and truth. My whole entire program is carved in stone right on the walls of on those steps. It was done in 1906. So they knew what they were doing, and somebody had a conscience back then. And when they set it in stone, no one went out there and blasted it off and rock. It stayed all these years.
That's a courthouse in Racine, Wisconsin.
Courthouse in Racine, Wisconsin. It uses my exact procedures of writing, where it only has one verb and a big long sentence of justice, using complete prepositional phrases in front of every single noun, including punctuation between the capital punctuation and the noun.
So their intent was correct, but the procedure was wrong.
No, both the intent and the procedure were correct in 1906 by the Masons who put that wall up.
1776.
Oh yeah, 1776, they were going after lands man's greed. Their procedure was wrong, their intent was wrong, it was a lie from the beginning. But they needed America to be developed, but they didn't want to give it up. So they said, well, we're going to pretend that the pen will write on the wall. Because if we ever call it a verb, it won't do anything. See? And what they did is they pretended for 220 years. While we built the roads, put up the skyscrapers, developed the land, cut down the trees, and developed our technologies. But the last thing they ever expected was somebody would develop an algebra formula to punch a hole through the whole system and clarify all communication skills for 8,000 years at the end of before they harvested. The only thing that they harvested is what was borrowed. So they only got back what they put into it.
You mentioned earlier that they grabbed $8 billion or $8 trillion in trust.
Yep. There's $40 trillion in trust in the United States. They went after anybody that had more than $20 million in trust that was over the age of 70. They took the old money where people don't gamble. When they took that money that was dormant, was laying in safety deposit boxes, and they put it, when they took it, they put it and bought stocks with it, put it in the stock market. That's what made the stock market go from 5,300 to 11,000. Money had to come from someplace, it just didn't fall out of the sky. There's $40 trillion laying in dormant trusts in the United States. And they only took 8 trillion of it, and they put 6 trillion of it in the stock market. Well, add it up. What's 5 to 6? 11. There's your 11 trillion. It takes $1 trillion to raise the stock market 1,000 points. Crystal clear mathematics.
So you're saying these were old trusts, what the people are dead or they're...
Some of these trusts have been, right, they've been just laying for 200 years. There was old money, old trust, old interest accumulating in the big banks, Citibank, Bank of America, Wells Fargo.
What gave them the instrumentality to be able to grab it? They just stole it.
I did.
Oh, you
March 1st, 1997, gave them the formulas at a seminar in San Jose. 2 IRS attorneys were in the audience. They saw what had happened. They immediately bolted, and the next week they took $60 billion out of England. The next week they took another $100 billion out of the Northeast. The third week they took another $100 billion. And when they were taking all this money, they were also selling the stock certificates where all this money was laying, which caused the stock market to go from March 1st, 1997, when I made the announcement, down to 5,300, falling 700 points by March 21st, 1997, at which time they said, wait a minute, guys, we just devalued our own pocketbook by 10%. We can't take the money out of the stock market. We have to invest in it. So all the money we seize in trust, we'll just take it out of their name and put it in our name, and we'll buy up the blue chips. We'll buy up computer, oil, gas, iron, coal, all the water rights, food rights, the land rights, food production, cattle production, electricity, we'll control all the key industries.
But you said the IRS did this?
International Monetary Fund's been doing that because the bankruptcy expires on September 17th, 1999. They didn't want to lose what they built. So if they seized all the dead money in trust, bought up all the hard assets.
Oh, well, they still grabbed the money fraudulently.
They had equity then. Now they're getting equity in the country and they'll get it back in the form of dividends. So they can still keep the old machinery running.
But they didn't have the right to grab money in the first place.
Yeah, they did, because every one of the trusts that they seized was registered with the International Monetary Fund. When they registered a fraudulent trust, they said, I deposit all the money for you for income tax benefits. Because the income tax benefits were now null and void. I mean, why would they, they said, put the money in trust and it's tax-free, right?
Right.
If you give them their money.
Trust, I got you, okay.
No, it's tax-free because you gave them 100% of your trust. Why would they want to tax themselves? It doesn't make any sense. Because they owned everything, they didn't have to tax themselves. They already owned it. The only thing they had to do was go out and take it whenever they wanted it.
Right.
But they didn't know how to take it until March 1st, 1997, when I showed them the formulas that the to was in future tense and from was past tense. And every single one of the trusts that was registered with them said, this trust. And I said, that's not a pronoun. It's not defined. UCC1. What is a this? This is an article specific, except there's no preposition. So because this is not an article and it's not a pronoun, and it's not an adjective because it doesn't describe anything, it becomes an adverb through process of deduction. Sherlock Holmes says, whatever, if you remove everything it can't be, therefore it is whatever is left. This is an adverb modifying the verb trust, because adverbs can't modify nouns. And if trust is a verb, there is no such thing as a trust verb, so therefore trust is null and void. And everything in the word this was supposed to represent the title of the trust as a substitute pronoun. But in fact, there is no such thing as a pronoun. Pronoun was an invention to deceive you that you were using an adverb, but they called it a pronoun so that you wouldn't get suspicious of an adverb. But a pronoun violates UCC1, full disclosure of intent of the contract, because you can't define this. Therefore, your contract is null and void. So through process of elimination, this is an adverb modifying the verb trust. There is no such thing. So all trusts were declared null and void on March 1st, 1997. $40 trillion is laying on the table. All you've got to do is pick it up and put it in your pocket.
The ones they picked up, you said, were people over 70 with over how much?
Over 20 million is what they started with, million. Okay, now, if you had $20 million and you are over the age of 70, are you going to go through the stress of trying to defend yourself? Your memory, your learning capacity at the age of 70 is just plain not up to speed. So what are you going to do? You're going to hire an attorney. Who does the attorney work for? The judge. Who's the judge work for? The International Monetary Fund. So you hire the International Monetary Fund to defend the fact that they just stole your money and they got to catch 22. They put you in a nursing home and they take your money quietly. And if you resist, they'll put you in prison and silence you completely. Or the stress of losing your $20 million causes you to have a heart attack or a stroke and you wind up in a nursing home or dead. Either way, you're gone. You're out of the picture. You don't have to wait for your inheritance tax. They just take off. Very, very subtle, very slick, the way they did it.
But the money's actually worse than nothing, so they have to...
Okay, well,
All you have to do still gets the job done because 99% of the
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. That's why they're investing the money, because they actually have something.
No, the money is not worth anything because when you take the money to a stock market, you want to take cash into your broker and say, I want to go ahead and buy some stocks. So we're not a bank. Money's not worth anything. We'll take personal check, bank draft, certified money orders, postal money orders, or stock certificates. We will not take money because it's not represented by anything. It's debt credit. You can't use a MasterCard to buy stock. You can't use MasterCard to buy a postal money order and then go buy your stock. But where's the postal money order? It's a postage stamp. What is your own paper money? It's a postage stamp. George Washington is a postmaster. Sure, he's first president. He's also a postmaster. Benjamin Franklin is a postmaster. Franklin, Hamilton, Lincoln, they're all postmasters. That's why they're on the money, because they're postage stamps. Because all do with the post office runs it all. They've kept it a secret. The politicians are no more than the puppets of the postmaster, but the postmaster don't want to take the heat, so he set the puppets up to take the heat. You know why we elect the President of the United States? He's not there as a commander-in-chief. He's there to take the flak. He is the most criticized, ridiculed, abused individual in the United States. He gets more dirt thrown at him than any other human being. And as far as Clinton's little fiascos that he does here and there, you're probably getting 1,000th of 1% of the flack that he takes on a day-to-day basis. You wonder, well, how come he's not all upset about this one? You know, it's like a grain of sand on the beaches of the world. You just could throw so much shit against the wall.
Right.
One of it's bound, some of it's bound to stick, but the rest of it's going to fall on the ground. Well, he just becomes indifferent to it. That's his job.
What? Back to this money that was taken. The trillions. Their intent was criminal. Right?
Yes, it is an actual theft, criminal intent.
I mean, they saw that the contract, the trust contract, had language problems. Okay, okay, so that does not give them the right to steal that money. It just gives them the knowledge
Take
to take it.
Right.
So is that why, for instance, with Susan and Amelia, their charges were mail fraud? Susan and Amelia, Terry, Toby Brown, all those guys that were on trial here in...
Oh, you mean the Ippolito case?
Yeah, the Amelia.
Okay.
Wasn't that mail fraud, basically?
What they did was they set themselves up a fictitious government.
Well, I understand what they did, but I mean, as far as how the government brought it down.
Okay, Amelia created fraud. The government created fraud. They joined with the fraud. Everyone hired an attorney, except Brown. Brown called me as his expert witness, and Meriday surrendered the courtroom to me. I had the courtroom for 45 minutes. I was just sitting there with my mom in the bleachers, and Toby Brown stands up and says, I want to call David Miller over here as my expert witness. And so they swore me in, and Toby starts to ask me questions. I'm going, Your Honor, Mr. Brown doesn't know who I am. I've never met the man. I said, I was just sitting here in the bleachers. However, I says, to expedite this trial, I says, if you turn the courtroom over to me, Your Honor, I'll put on a demonstration for you. You know what Judge Meriday did? He said, do we have a blackboard? And everybody clamored and said, yeah, we got one over here for traffic court. Bring it out. The time it took them to pull that out of there, we had 12 U.S. attorneys come into the courtroom, all the U.S. marshals in the federal courthouse, all the clerks in the federal courthouse, and 2 more federal judges flanked Meriday. And I put on a 40-minute demonstration on which I'm showing you here with the language and the jurisdiction. And Toby Brown didn't say a word. And I said, now, sir, I says, because you put yourself on a plane above the rest of us, and you created a state within a state under a yellow French flag, you have surrendered your oath and affirmation into a fiction. By doing so, you have... Stop right here, Mr. Roller, get out of my courtroom and don't say another word! That's exactly what happened. Everybody was there to testify to that. What I was going to say was, and by definition, Your Honor, you just committed constructive treason. And I was going to charge you with constructive treason in front of everybody. But for 45 minutes of that demonstration, and I'm going to show you what I did there in Meriday's court, the attorneys were all laughing in the front. The clerks were laughing in the front, and Judge Meriday then, because the laughter was getting a little bit noisy, he stops and he goes, Mr. Miller is correct, pay attention. And these guys their jaws hit the floor. The 2 federal judges agreed with Meriday because a judge knows procedure. Just like the procedure of the United States versus U period, S period, A period. He knows the procedure of the identity that the district attorneys had egg on their face when that happened. And they had to shut up and learn.
How far down does this knowledge go in the judge pool?
Well, everyone's got it out of my books out. From the dog at large, from the dog at large municipal judge all the way up to the Supreme Court.
So I think he's talking about...
What book is this? This information
Yeah.
that you have in this book?
That book there is what the judges have adapted as a judge book. The federal courts, the district courts, all these judges never knew what was going on at the Supreme Court. They never knew what the fraud was. They never knew about intent or tense. They never knew about the condition of thinking or language fraud. This here has revolutionized courts all the way around the planet. Doesn't matter what nation you go to. This is still a noun. It's a pen. In 5,000 languages, it's still a noun. If you obstruct the identity of the procedure, you've committed fraud. And that's what my program teaches.
Say that again, if you obstruct.
If you obstruct the intent of the procedure, you've committed fraud.
The intent of the procedure is the finding of the truth.
No, you're obstructing the truth in the first place.
No, but I mean, right.
If you obstruct the procedure, you will cover up the truth. You won't be able to get to the truth.
But I mean, a truthful procedure is intended to find the truth.
Right. This procedure here mathematically takes apart everything that you throw at me. And before you can get to the subject, you have to identify it. Now, A man stood up in the room here and he goes, he says, I've got Webster's dictionary right here in my hand. He says, "Does an adjective." It says right here in the book. I'm going, okay, let's look at
There's two, I looked it up, he's wrong, there's two definitions, because when I saw your tapes, I looked at the adverb issue too.
It has multiple definitions.
Right, that's right, and you got that, it's moved, this is buried in there, but it's in there.
How's that reflect? Are you getting reflection from
No,
the light here?
no, it's what you're now.
Sorry.
I'm gonna move this light here. That fan is blowing on me. I'm getting going to the sore throat. That air conditioner, when you stand directly under it, it's like 50 degrees directly in the blast. All right, we got an adjective, a noun, a verb, a pronoun, an article, a preposition,
Adverb.
and an adverb. Okay. Through deductive reasoning, are you getting anywhere?
That's just
Is it good?
good.
Okay. The man stood up and he said it's an adjective. I said, no, it's not. He says it's an article. I says it could be. I said, but now we're going to use deductive reasoning. If it's an adjective, it has to be a noun first, like the word pen. Blue pen. Blue is an adjective of pen, but blue is a noun, and it's right. By itself, blue is the name of the color, so it's a noun. Put the noun in front of a noun, it becomes an adjective. So, because the has not been established to be a noun, it can't be the adjective either. How about a noun? Well, it can't be a noun because it doesn't describe a person, place, or thing at this place. That disqualifies it. Is it a verb? Action? No. I can make it a verb very easily. Pronoun. A pronoun violates UCC 1, full disclosure of intent. Describe what the word the is as a pronoun. It isn't defined, so therefore, because you don't define it first, there has to be a contract affiliated with the word the to identify it as a pronoun. It doesn't exist, so therefore it's disqualified. An article. The can only be an article if it's in the presence of a preposition. It must follow a preposition, otherwise it cannot be an article. As a preposition, it doesn't exist, and I don't know how it could ever be a preposition. I've never heard of it, seen it, or I don't know how the mechanics could ever make it a preposition. Adverb. It's a modifier, therefore it becomes the adverb. Modifies the verb pen. There's no such thing as a pen verb. Therefore we have a fraudulent statement. But this still is an adverb, and this becomes the verb. Now if I say, of the pen, now this is a preposition, this is an article, and now this becomes a noun, because all words that follow a prepositional phrase are nouns. There is no exception to the rule. Point being, by the. This here is a preposition, this is an article, and this is a noun. How is the a noun? It is the word that identifies the definition of the in the dictionary. Therefore, it is a noun, person, place, or thing. It is an identity. We use the word pen to identify this object. The word the now identifies the definition of the in the dictionary. Therefore, it is a proper noun. All 1.6 million words in English language, in fact, are proper nouns when followed by a prepositional phrase. We did this one in front of the PhDs in English also, which blew their mind. This is an adverb modifying the verb the. Of is a preposition. This is an article. And a noun. We used it 4 different times in that sentence. We have a noun, we have a verb in the sentence, therefore it's a properly written sentence. It is. It's a properly written sentence. Because the now becomes the verb, and the prepositional phrase establishes a noun. You must have a noun and a verb to establish a sentence under the laws of procedure. And all these 3 PhDs go, you're dangerous. You can take any word and make anything you want out of it.
Just the first part of that, the adverbs and verbs
Adverbs always modify verbs. It can't be an adjective because there's no noun that causes modifier to take place. You can't modify another adverb because the adverb doesn't modify, adverb can't modify a preposition. Can't. Adverbs cannot modify prepositions. Adverbs can modify verbs.
All right.
If you put, this is an adverb modifying a verb, then the preposition stands alone and becomes a prepositional phrase. If the adverb modifies an adverb, which modifies an adverb, which modifies an adverb, then that would become the verb there, as the. And the assignment of authority goes backwards. This is how you check your math. How do you find out which one to use? Where do you sign your name? Don't you sign it at the bottom of the paper? That's because you take jurisdiction for everything above it and in front of it. So the last word in the sentence has jurisdiction. If this is the noun, this is the article, this is the preposition.
Requires a preposition.
Exactly. Then, because this is a requirement, and this is already established because of the prepositional phrase giving the jurisdiction, this has to be a verb because you can't put an adverb in front of a preposition. And if this is the verb, then this becomes an adverb. And therefore the sentence is certified both frontwards and backwards to be correct. Truth is written in a circle. And so now we can, and when I show you the math procedures, this certifies this.
Did your mother homeschool you?
No, this is completely, when I developed, this is all, no one on this planet has ever developed anything even remotely close. This is brand new. Just revolution, virgin technology. We took the existing procedures in math and we took the existing procedures in English and we interfaced them. And when we did it took me 3 years to find the interface. And when I found it, I unlocked all language keys on the planet. And I'm going to show you. You've got a square. You've got another square. See, now you got to put the whole program together. You got to put the puzzle together, and all the math problems have to add up at the same time.
In the Sunday this week section, the girl that is supposedly the genius, she put that in her one of her articles in the last year.
See, and the answer to this is hieroglyphics, and this is numerical. And so what you do is this is a three-dimensional puzzle. You say when you put it into a cube, it's a three-dimensional puzzle that adds up this way, and that way. It's three-dimensional, which means three pages with hieroglyphics cube gives it an exponential of 6,000 pages of text, is what it adds up to. Because not only does it go around the surface of the thing and add up simultaneously, it also goes through the object in all 9 directions. 6 directions. So it gives it an exponential cubing effect, which then unlocks the complete set of numbers, numerical. And this here is a hieroglyphics. This here is your key. Once you know what the key is, you can unlock the formulas. Well, what I did was I took and I found the key also. The key was we went through all the different forms of math. We trig, calculus, physics, geometry, algebra, and after 3 years, I took a piece of line paper, and it just, as fate would have it. Normally, your line paper, like, you know, it's just, you write like this here on your lines. Well, this day, the line paper was laying like this, and I went 1, 2, 3, 4, and I realized what I had done. Just because the line paper was turned on the side, I said it's a graph. It's a three-dimensional graph that I'm looking for. I kept looking at I kept looking at something that was flat, trying to go in a straight line. It's not a straight line. It's a three-dimensional object, and I immediately it just exploded in my head how it works. So what the answer was, 1 plus 2 equals 3, and 3 minus 2 equals 1, and that's how tough it was. But I had to put the values in place, and I did the values the first time correctly. So then I expanded. I went 2 plus 3 equals 5, and 5 minus 3 equals 2. 2 times 3 equals 6, and 6 minus 3, 6 divided by 3 equals 2. And so I figured, well, if the formula is true, it'll be true no matter what substitutions I make. Whether I add, subtract, multiply, or divide, it should always come out the same, and the value should never change, which took place. And that's what gave me the interface. Then I divided these up, and I gave them values. When you do a math problem, everything that you do frontwards, you correct it by doing backwards. So truth is written in a circle. That's why no one ever got mad over math. No religion, no sex, no political foundation, no country has ever gone to war over a math problem. You can put 50 different religions in the same room and throw a math problem up and teach math all day long, and everybody will be at peace and they'll go ahead and work. Say one theological statement, you'll have the entire room go to war and kill each other in the next minute. It's a fact, absolute fact, about what man thinks about. So I had to go into an environment where I could teach religion to many different ministers in the same room, cover every single subject that man can conceive, and keep it ordered to a room of 100 people. How do you do that? Teach procedure, which is mathematics. As long as the mind is focused on mathematics and the procedures that are created thereof, you then have order. As long as the mind is looking at procedure, I know that I'm teaching the people procedure, not subject matter. Because you make one subject matter remark, you're going to have war in the room. That's how simple the human mind is. So, 1 is 1 on both sides, 2 is 2. So, what goes around comes around. The noun is not going to change. The 3 is 3, 5 is 5, and 6 is 6. Those are also nouns on both sides of the formula. Now, the equal signs on both sides of the formula are always found to be the article and the conjunction. You can put knife, fork, and spoon, and became a conjunction. Knife, spoon, and fork. The point was that the conjunction was neutral, like the equal sign is. No matter what form of mathematics you create, the equal sign is always there so to tell you that this is where you got to put your answer. It's not part of the formula. It just says this is where the formula ends, this is where the neutrality issue comes into play. The article will always precede the noun. No exception to the rule. You don't have an article, you don't have a noun. You only have a presumption. If I said pen, it is only a pen because it is my opinion that it's a pen. I must bring it by a prepositional phrase, del pen, of the pen, for the pen, by the pen. Because it has an assignment of authority to command a specific subject. We'll get into the prepositions in a minute. So, the article and conjunction were both assigned to the equal sign. Now we've got a plus 2, minus 2, plus 3, minus 3, multiple 3, division 3. All right. Numbers are absolutes, just like nouns. This is a pen noun. Okay, the pen is now in motion. Pen didn't change by motion. So therefore the verb is assigned to this value here, which means the verb will not be influenced or changed. There is no modifier on the verb. The verb is an independent entity, just like a noun is. You must have a noun and a verb in a sentence to make a sentence. Boy, run. Boy is a noun, run is a verb. So now you've got your sentence. There's only 2 words, but it is a proper sentence. The only thing that's different on both sides of the formula is adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, and those are prepositions. For the one nation is under the God. All right, this is a very unique sentence because the word God is what we call a keyword on planet Earth. I suspect that if it's a keyword here, it's also a keyword on all other planets. Because you must have a focal point of high authority that is always in present tense. Okay, God must be this one word in any language, no matter how you speak it. It must be maintained as your test word to be kept in highest position and in present tense at all times. Under is a present tense preposition. For is a present tense preposition. For the one, all numbers are nouns. There's no exception to the rule. But if I go ahead and I remove the hyphen, the one noun becomes an adjective of nation. But I just told you all 1.6 million words following a prepositional phrase are nouns, and there's no exception to that rule either. Now we've got a conflict. Without punctuation, this word has 2 identities, a noun and an adjective. The first rule of sentencing is it must be simple. That's singular. We've got dual identities. Rule 8a, better rules of civil procedure. Stipulate. You must make a simple statement, singular statement, which means singular tense. All right? So, if we leave this as a dual identity, it disqualifies the document. So we've got to put the hyphen in, and now this here becomes a compound noun. So I underlined it. That brings it to people's attention that it's a compound noun. Is an independent verb, singular, present tense. Under is present tense, the God. Now, if we're going to do a math problem like 2 plus 3, we're going to put it in parentheses and then put a 6 next to it. What was the answer? 2 plus 3 is 5 times 6 equals 30. We consolidate that. When we put the 6 on this side and the 5 inside, it'll still be, it's 30. So the parentheses become a key factor here in mathematics. You have an order of operations. So parentheses, you multiply, you divide, you subtract, you add, and the order of operations is left to right. This is your jurisdictional order of operations. That never changes. We're going to use the same order of operations because we're dealing with a math problem, we're dealing with English, we're dealing with an interface. So now we've got the one nation and the God. The article always precedes the noun, and so those 2 are going to be modified. Up here, the math problem shows the preposition is going to be our key factor of modification. So if we wrote frontwards to get 30 and we want to check it, we've got to go backwards. So under now goes to the front side of the preposition. Under becomes over. And for, which means to go towards, the opposite of for in a preposition would be by or of. You still must be in present tense. But by and of are a definition like the word from, only in present tense. So you can use these of or by, either one. By the God is over the one nation, or of the God is over the one nation. For the one nation is under the God. By reversing the preposition, the sentence now says the same thing, both frontwards and backwards, and truth is written in a circle. So now that you have present tense both directions, and God is maintained in high authority in both directions, you know you've written the sentence correctly, because the intent as well as the tense of the sentence is identical. Everyone follow that? Because you haven't lost anything, truth is now written in a circle. Just like we checked the math problem, we just checked this sentence here. Now I'm going to do a second one for you. These four are present tense prepositions. Now, is going to become a floating verb. And these prepositions are also going to become floating. They're going to also float. These become factors, because the article will always precede the noun. So no matter where we move the verb, that will change which preposition we use. For the driving of the car is with the knowledge of the driver. For the driving of the car is by the knowledge with the driver. Still says the same thing. For the car of the driver is with the knowledge of the driving. Let's take another one. For the driver of the car is for the driving with the knowledge.
So you can use the prepositions multiple times.
Multiple times, but each time I'm moving, I'm changing the preposition I place in front of each one of these words. And I get I've still said the same thing.
They're interchangeable.
They're interchangeable for one thing, and if I start the sentence with is the driver of the car with the knowledge of the driver? I've created this question because you started with a verb. Now, if I said for the driving of the car with the knowledge of the driver is, now I created a dangling participle verb. There is no assignment of authority, and I just destroyed a sentence. You can't end a sentence in a verb. Classic example. You can say, for the car is with the knowledge of the driver for the driving. See, you just moved it. You moved the verb around. Okay, now we use the verb we'll put three prepositional phrases. For the driver of the car with the knowledge is the driver, is for the driver. Okay, now I can move this verb, it floats. And every time a verb is used, the first word that comes after a verb is for. The first word of the sentence that you start with is for. Now these two words, for and with, are interchangeable. With the car or for the car are both towards, possessive. By and of are from, the reverse. And these always become interchangeable no matter how many times you want to mix them up.
So you must also start the sentence with a preposition, all sentences.
You must start, right? What's the first rule they taught us all through school? Never start a sentence with a preposition. They wanted to make sure the English teachers obstructed our ability to communicate and always destroy the verb. Always destroy the noun. They said start every sentence with the article, and bring in your noun next. And in fact, it was an adverb because there was no preposition, destroying all of our ability to make nouns. And now it is up in the millennium that 100% of our communication skills are written in verb. Orwell wrote 1933, the book 1984.
You could start a sentence with by too, though, can't you?
Yes.
You just said only for with.
I found there was a couple occasions in my book I even had to use the word by because we were doing an assignment of authority before we but by
By the knowledge of the car.
but by is doing an assignment at the beginning of the sentence. Assignments are put at the end of the sentence because technology runs in reverse.
Yep.
The point is, if we give the assignment by in the beginning of the sentence when we write backwards, it's going to reverse the sentence again, and you use the wrong preposition.
Okay, all right. That's why I wanted to challenge, just to get clear again.
Okay, now let's take the sentence, for the one nation is under the God. And let's start the sentence with, for the one nation is over the God. Now took God, even though we use the present tense preposition over, we took God and we put him under a nation, which now took him out of a high position. He must be kept in high authority in present tense, those two. Even though we use still present tense, we violated the condition of the definition of the assignment. So your assignment of authority must always be maintained throughout the entire document, frontwards and backwards. So you have to choose where your assignment of authority is going to be addressed in the sentence, and then create the proper prepositional use to support the noun within that sentence, so that it will be, and the only way to get it right is write it backwards. Use the reverse preposition. And when you write it backwards, you will always check yourself to see what's done correctly the first time. Just like when we did, this is a real simple test case. And what you can do is you put this on 4 or 5 flashcards, where you use by, up, for, and with, the driver, the car, the knowledge, and the driving. And as you move the verb around, and you move the words around, you can experiment to see how it fits. Because we are all familiar with knowledge, an automobile, driving, and a driver, moi, it is a subject that we can very easily associate with, because we've used these sentence structures on a daily basis our entire life. So it becomes second nature to us. So when you hear something, you can immediately pick up if it's right or wrong, because you're saturated with it.
How many prepositions are there? How many articles?
55.
How many articles?
Huh?
How many articles?
There's articles can be all pronouns. This, those, them, that, these, the, and a. Those are your articles. There's only, about a dozen articles.
Just write that down there.
Huh?
Yeah. It's not in the book, like all 65 prepositions.
You can look up prepositions in a dictionary encyclopedia, will have them all listed.
I know, but it's nice to have a little cheat sheet.
Oh
you know what
yeah,
I'm
cheat
saying?
sheet. I don't know, everybody likes pronouns.
I kind of made one, but I was never sure if they were absolutely right. You know?
I've been so frustrated. I've been studying Spanish. I took it for 5 years and then never studied it. I've been studying Spanish. And so many of the structures I've been very frustrated with this really totally clarifies why.
Yeah, true.
See that people come to this course and they have ideas about what you're going to learn, and they don't realize that no one ever knew how to read and write.
Yeah.
And when you all of a sudden you see the fundamentals of reading and writing and things you should have got first, second, third, and fourth grade, and they were obstructed, all of a sudden, like every subject you've ever learned in your entire life becomes blown away. And you've got to go back to square one and reevaluate your identity of the words. Now, by the end of today, you will not be able to read anything without correcting it. You will be so suspicious about the conspiracy, and as you walk around this world, you're going, am I the only one that knows what's going on? And all of a sudden, like, you put yourself into a state of mind that I'm in control. I really know what's going on, and I can see all these people, the millions of the mass, that don't know that they've been frauded.
When was the language corrupted? Was there
8,000 years ago, right after hieroglyphics was removed.
So you're really saying this is historic? I mean, there's not contemporary.
Nobody after Babylon. When Babylon, they had hieroglyphics. After Babylon, 5,000 languages were created. And that's where that's the word Babel means. To say nothing. So after Babylon, man only spoke in verb. And it became a corrupt language on the planet, no matter, there was no interface.
And yet there was knowledge, like you said in 1906, there was knowledge.
Some other people sat down and they worked this out.
Yeah.
And in their working them out, they also got scared. Because they said, oh my God, I just discovered how to destroy the entire contract language on the planet. Gee, when they find out about that, they're going to do away with me, because they're going to want to keep their fraud running. And so they went underground and disappeared. Or maybe they were killed because somebody else knew about it, was in a power position, it was going to become compromised.
Or they were the people who controlled the world.
And I went ahead and I said, well, I had this stuff for a year. While I was developing it, I was as secretive as you ever saw somebody. I was just a hermit. But I figured, well, first thing I got to do is mail the entire program out to 100 newspapers. If anything happens to me with my copyrights, they'll have a legacy to follow under. And then we made videotapes, because at each one of the seminars, I couldn't duplicate myself with the videotapes. We're doing video seminars, thousands of them across the country every single day. So the video seminars are bringing people up to speak, because I can't be there. And you learn just as much off the video. You can watch it over and over again. So it was a good learning tool. See, one of the things that's unique today is we have technology. You've got computers, you've got TV. You can put on a seminar with 100 people in a video machine, or educate an audience in a movie theater. You don't have to have the physical presence of an individual. Today you go to a college, you got one professor stands up on TV and through satellite talks to 100 classrooms and 10,000 students across the United States. And it's very popular to do that. So becoming a teacher today is, your program is no longer than the videotape that you can generate. That's your job security. The only thing that's unique about coming here in person is you guys can ask questions. You can't do that to a videotape. That was 30 minutes. I'll take a little break.
Somebody asked about homeschooling. We're just getting ready to start homeschooling, so giving me quite a curriculum today. Awesome.
Okay, what we're going to do after a little break here is take, we're going to do prepositions. The importance of a preposition. It is a political foundation.
I realized that I did not.
Political foundation. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take, and we're going to affiliate this with a math problem, just to show you that all things are interfaced with math. You got 5 times 1 equals 5. Now, that's a simple enough math problem. That's basically what a prepositional phrase is. It is the accumulation of people creating rules. That's what a preposition is. It's the rules, and it is the vote of the people. Now, anytime people get together, they're going to vote to create rules and regulations. Now, if you have a colony of ants, you only have one queen. you have a bee colony, you have only one queen. If you have a whale pod, you have a leader. Chimpanzees, gorillas, apes, they all have one leader. Geese follow a leader. Any time a species of organized individuals get together that have the ability to reason, they form an organization and they pick a leader. So the preposition is what we call the assignment of authority. People get together and they assign rules. Let's say the speed limit in our school zones are 20 miles an hour. That's a good rule. We all have kids, we want to keep them protected. And we're also going to assign that the penalty for that is going to be $100 if anybody breaks that rule. But in order to enforce the rules, we need a leader. So the article always commands people. So the article is going to be a leader, there's going to be a judge, there's going to be the captain of a ship. So the captain, or the judge, or the leader that we all agree to vote to appoint is going to be the enforcer. He makes the decisions. So let's say you got caught driving 40 miles an hour in our school zone, and we all agreed, because we all voted to make the rules, it was unanimous, to pick a leader and make me the judge. And he was the police officer that was appointed by our election, and he brought you before me, and I said, okay, you were driving 40 miles an hour in our 20-mile-an-hour school zone, and it carries a $100 fine. You say, well, I'm not going to pay it. I'm going, well, wait a minute. You voted on 20 miles an hour. You voted to make me your leader. You voted to elect him as a police officer to police. And in fact, he is like a bailment manager. He watches, keeps things safe. And when things are unsafe, then he brings it to my attention because we all voted to create this environment. And you say, no, I'm not going to pay it. I said, well, as the leader and the judge, if you don't pay the $100, you're going to have to leave our society. Because if you leave our society, we're going to have to put you into a cell. We're going to have to dress you in pink pajamas, feed you starchy foods, and so you get lost in reality and get locked up every day. Because we're in fiction.
No TV. No TV.
Because we're in fiction. Now, if we're on the captain of a ship, and the crew elects me to be the leader,
Walk the plank.
well, you get to walk the plank to be part of the food chain with the sharks. Of course, you look at that and go, wait a minute, maybe our society isn't so bad here. And I think we'll just stay where we're at, and I'll pay the fine. So we had an offer, we have acceptance, and we have compliance. And so the $100 gets paid over here. That's what it is. A preposition is an offer. Assignment of authority, rules and regulations. The acceptance, you guys offered me a judgeship, I took it. So I'm going to go ahead and enforce that position. And now, just like over here, I said we give $100, we offered it here, you accepted it here, and the compliance was moved over here. Now we have a contract. To have a contract, you must have offer, acceptance, compliance, or the word ratification comes into play. Satisfaction, compliance, they're all synonyms. Okay. So now you take, and we're going to remove something from the prepositional phrase. We're going to remove the preposition and say, the people. Okay, now we got 0 times 1 equals 0. You break up a multiplication problem. So we have no vote, we have no rules, no regulations. I stand up and say, I'm the leader. Give me your money. See, how many times we heard that happen to the judge? The brother-in-law comes in, puts on a black robe, sits up there and says, give me your money. You give him his money, you walk out, you don't know what's going on. Or you say, wait a minute, Your Honor, like Moser's case. He goes, Moser, you retired 26 years ago. Your oath and affirmation is expired. You're just an actor in black robes. You're mourning justice. I said to him, I'm not going to tell you who I am. I'm not going to give you my name, and I'm not going to make a contract with you. I don't have a contract wherever these people are. So you guys can do whatever you want in your dog and pony show here. I said to him, just that, I called it a dog and pony show, and I sat down. Well, the trial lasted 2 hours and 15 minutes. Then when they asked for damages, the judge stood up and he said, you people don't have a contract with whoever that person is. He said,
Whoever the person is.
you're going to pay your fees, case dismissed. And he walked out. And he said to me, he says, Mr. Miller, your statute of limitations is running out. That was a death threat from a judge. 89-year-old judge. He says, I've been a judge and I've heard over 200,000 cases in 52 years on the bench, and I have never been talked to like I've been talked to today. And he couldn't hold me in contempt because he wasn't a judge, which is an actor in black robes. And I knew that. Because I knew that, he walked out.
Wait a minute, he wasn't a judge, he was an actor in black robe.
Yeah, he was an actor in black
Oh,
robes.
he doesn't have
The
to-
black robe means you're morning justice. Morning justice, right? That's why you remember black robes. That's why when somebody was telling me about the judge came into court, took off a robe, and sat down at the table,
Yeah, we all sat there and go, what is it? That was over in...
she wasn't morning justice, she was upholding justice. She took off her black robe and says, this person knows what he's doing, I better get off the bench right now before I get in trouble.
But are
And
they-
sat down with you. We had the case won, but then you surrendered it back to the fiction. She put her black robe on and says, lunchtime.
Are
Where
this-
did you find that?
Find what?
Morning justice.
Are they
No,
supposed,
that's just, every judge has 12 black robes and 1 white robe. The white robe is for marriage, for getting married.
Yeah.
A Christian marriage, not a state marriage. You get state married, there's still morning justice because it's a fraudulent contract. If you have just a Christian marriage, you write your own contract, then you got to wear a white robe.
But the term morning justice...
Morning as in crying.
Right. No, I get it. I'm saying, where is it written? How do you find it?
It's not between the judges. You got to go to judge school to learn that. They teach that. So, the now becomes an adverb modifying the verb people. As we know, there is no such thing as a verb people, and 0 times 1 equals 0, so therefore you have exactly what you put into it. You have no offer, you have an acceptance, therefore you have no compliance, because there was no offer. You violated contract law. You must have offer, acceptance, compliance, or ratification. Here there was no offer of the people, there was no vote, there was no rules. There was only dictatorship that now created 0, a verb people. The master cannot rule over something that he doesn't have a contract for. So therefore the mass procedure has the same jurisdiction as the language obstruction. Nothing to be got, nothing. So now we say by people. Now we've got 5 times 0 equals 0. Even though you create rules and regulations, if you don't have an assignment of authority, and you don't have a leader to enforce it, you become a mob rule, vigilante. And therefore you have your offering, no one has accepted your jurisdiction, and you have nothing in return. And so the adverb by now turns people into a verb, and you don't have people, you have mob. You have chaos. So if you take away a prepositional phrase, you have a verb now. And you destroy your sentence, you destroy your intent, you destroy your contract. You don't have a contract. Therefore, every treaty, trust, and contract that incorporates adverb-verb combinations is not a treaty, trust, or contract, and that's why they seize your money without asking. The entire bank codes, the entire insurance codes, every treaty, every trust, every contract written in America is in this format. Every contract, every home mortgage is in this program. We had an English teacher in Seattle, Washington 2 years ago after learning this program from us. She refused to pay her mortgage payment. Had lived in a home for 8 years, and she had a 30-year mortgage. She went to court. She stood up and she said, my name is Mary Ann Smith. Full call it Smith. The judge called Mary Ann Smith. No reply. He says, let it now be known for the record that Mary Ann Smith is in court today. Mary Ann Smith is a sovereign citizen. However, I am calling Mary Ann Mary Ann Smith to court. Even though she was in the sanctuary of the bar sitting down, she did not answer. Then the judge says, do you understand who you are? She says, I am under the law of the flag, I am a sovereign citizen, and yes, I understand who I am. Then he called for appearances for his bank. And they stood up and acknowledged themselves. And all the attorneys acknowledged themselves also. Then he said to the lady, Madam, do you understand that you have not paid your mortgage payment? She says, I will not participate in the fraud. I have fraudulent language on my contract, and the bank will not correct it. Therefore, I will not make any more fraudulent payments, and I will not participate in the fraud. Do you understand that Mary Ann Smith did not come to court today? She says, I understand that was my fictitious name, and that fiction name was signed on that contract. That was before I had knowledge. She says, I have knowledge, and that is a fraud. They will not correct the fraud, and so therefore the contract is a fraud, the individual who signed it was a fraud, and I am here as a sovereign citizen. And the judge says, you understand then that I have to give the house back under default because Mary Ann Smith did not come to court today? She says, I understand. She says, I will give up my house before I will become part of a knowledgeable fraud and lie with conscience. And the judge says, then I hereby award, she says, you're free to go, madam. I hereby award the house back to the bank because they have the contract under default because Mary Ann Smith refused to come to court today. She got up and walked out. And everybody felt that I had injured her, that she had lost her home because she had knowledge. I said, no, that was her freedom of will. Her decision between her and her God to be honest, and she was an honest woman. And the judge was very, very careful with that case, very courteous to her in honoring her. And you know what happened next? After she walked out, he took off his robe and threw it on the floor. This was told by the witnesses that came to court with her. And he was so embarrassed to be a judge to have to do that, to support the fraud. And they called me in Milwaukee immediately right after the judge did that. And he was a man of conscience, but he was under a different set of rules and regulations that he had to uphold. Because if he didn't, he would have been lunged me.
Can't she go back and to try and correct that because the bank took the position of maintaining a fraud?
What she did after that is she checked herself completely out of the system. She used the truth,
Right.
and she's been studying this procedures to check herself out of everything that is fraud. She's going to start over. She's 62 years old, and she wants to start over. She won't accept Social Security. She won't accept anything from the government and the fraud. She lives alone. She moved in with her sister right now, and her sister taking care of her. That was the last report I had.
But can she go back after that? I mean, she has to have the knowledge.
She's learning. Yes, she has to have the knowledge. She has to do it herself.
The bank maintained the position of a fraudulent document, and they...
But the will of intent was that they didn't, all parties agreed to the contract at the point of time it was signed.
Yeah.
How do you purchase something if you're dealing in reality and they're still dealing in fraud? How do you buy a house? Because they want to give you a...
Well, I just recently bought a house. I just refinanced. After I refinanced, with all the checks were done, I went back to the bank with the contract that I took home and corrected it. My president almost had a heart attack when he saw how many mistakes were on this contract. I mean, he physically was hyperventilating. He went red to the face. He went chest pains because he realized that all probably 1,500 mortgages that the bank carries were written all in the same program in fiction. So I agreed to go ahead and correct the paperwork and show him a truthful document that he could go out and restructure bring all 1,500 people in and then restructure the mortgages into the truth. It's an independent, one-horse bank. The same two guys have been running it since 1971. I've been with the bank since 71. They got out of college, they started this bank, they have my family money. They have never sold a mortgage, have always kept everything in-house. And it's just the most unique, tight little situation that falls right into play as to what I do. So I've always stayed with that bank. Yes?
I'm not mistaken, with everything being fraud, you said you can exist in both. You can exist in truth and in fraud. Now, don't you become the trustee?
Is there a conflict of it? No. You are the trustee of the fiction on the piece of paper. See, everything that you have is in fact a piece of paper. This piece of paper does not live, it does not breathe. This piece of paper, however, is a trust document, and you are the trustee. Your thinking makes you the trustee. Your thinking gives you the intent over the piece of paper. So anything that is created on this piece of paper is part of the fiction jurisdiction. And so, and the government knows this. It is when you identify yourself to be a fiction that you run into problems. Now, we're going to go ahead and go through names. Names are very important because it is the first thing that you say to identify your reality. Okay, we can say D.W. Miller. Now for lowercase. This is a noun, this is a noun, this is a noun. I can write it David hyphen W period Miller. And I'll write all the different ways. Now, when you go ahead and you capitalize your name in all uppercase letters, this is called a nom de guerre. N-O-M-D-E-G-U-E-R-R-E. It's French. It means you're a dead person. War name. The nom de guerre was created after World War I. And what it was, they would send a letter in capitalized letters to the battlefield. If you did not answer in 10 days, they assumed you were dead, and the letter was returned in capitalized letters saying that you are deceased and your family can settle your estate. That was the certification that they used during the war. And so the nom de guerre was carried forward and brought into the bankruptcy of the United States. That the people were all capitalized by name so that they were dead chattel of the bankruptcy. When you're born, you're assigned a birth certificate. You have two certificates. One is called a live birth certificate. The other one is a birth certificate, which is boxed. It is then sent to Puerto Rico. The hospital gets a $2,000 kickback for every birth certificate they turn over. And then you are put into the United States Trust as chattel of the trustee. And they budget you at $640,000 is what you will produce in your lifetime between now and the time you're 64 years old. And in other words, averaging $10,000 a year. And it's on a sloping scale. You know you're not going to produce anything until you're roughly 18 years old. And then at 18 you'll be working at minimum wage at $10,000. And as you get older, in your 30s you might be making $20,000. And when you're 40 you're making $50,000. And when you're 50 you're making $70,000. And so the scale kind of balances itself out. If you make anything over $640,000, then that's all pure productivity for them. You're worth more than your chattel was generated. These people go on welfare their whole life. We got people like up in Milwaukee are fourth and fifth generation welfare recipients. They just were raised in welfare. They had children, and their children are in welfare. It's just fourth, fifth generation welfare. And so the children, this chattel value is what you can borrow against. We had this one man, he was in prison, he learned about this technology, about his value, and so he ordered that so much of the back, because he was in prison, non-productive, he ordered that his productivity or his value in his account was transferred to his family to pay all of his bills off. And he moved like $250,000 out of the $640,000 because he was sentenced to life imprisonment to pay all of his bills off. Kind of a weird situation. But there was just one that got through the system and they put a clamp on it. Other people tried to do it, move the money off, and they cut off all source to that income. Because it existed, no one ever used it, no one ever thought to protect it.
How can it exist if you don't earn it?
It's assigned to you as to what you're going to produce for the bankruptcy. In other words, how much money you're going to pay into the bankruptcy, and then, of course, of your life. Because the United States has been in bankruptcy since 1789. So each generation, with the last bankruptcy of 1929, is now going to expire in 1999. And that's when the United States will become a sovereign nation.
Okay, but you're assessed a value of $640,000. That means you actually, this person has a value of $640,000 to the United States,
Right.
and they're going to give us $640,000.
No, they're not going to give it to you. That's how much you're going to produce. They're going to borrow against you and create money. That's where they get their money from. Is they borrow against the individual's ability to earn in the next 60 or next 40 years.
And then
of
assume
life.
that they're going to make
From the
it
age
back.
18 to, most people work 45 years. They retire at 62. So 18 and 45 is 62.
So in other words, for every child that is born, they can take $640,000 more.
Right.
And
as the population and inflation goes up, they also increase that number. It's directly, now about 1992, 93. Remember when the budget kept going bankrupt and there wasn't enough money to pay the Congress and the federal government shut down a couple of times?
Tax retroactivity,
Right.
93.
All right. At that point, they had borrowed all the money they could fiscally borrow from 30 years in the future. They had physically bankrupted the United States 30 years into the future. And somebody said, well, why don't we borrow from 50 years in the future? And he goes, yeah, I'll just borrow from the future. And then when we borrow all the money we can mathematically borrow from 50 years in the future, we'll borrow from 75 years and then 100 years and so on. So that's what they did. That's why all of a sudden, like, there was all kinds of money all over the place because they were borrowing money from the future and making it available today to spend it, knowing that everybody would be dead and somebody else would be responsible for it. But then the issue came up on the 70-year bankruptcy cycle. Nobody knew about that. That was probably the best kept secret in America. Only a few people knew about the bankruptcy when they filed it, and they never made it public. A few people that were on the inside that got disgruntled told the secret to some of the patriots, and it wound up as being a grassroots rumor that kept floating around. But anybody that got into the study of how bankruptcy works, bankruptcy judges work, and then into international bankruptcy, most people just study history within their own country. They don't study international history. So the amount of people that would accidentally stumble upon into international bankruptcy, chances are they would see it but wouldn't realize what they've got and put two and two together. And even if they did discover it, people would then come back and say, well, that's just your presumption, and blow it off. Now that we've got a mathematical certification program, now we go into court, I can testify as an expert witness saying, I can prove what I say, and put the math up there, do the interface, and the judge says, Mr. Cronin's right. He now becomes an expert witness, and he holds the copyrights. Faraday gave that to me 2 years ago at the Alito case. And ever since then, I've been able to testify any place in the United States as a federal expert witness, and no one has thrown me out of court for it. As a matter of fact, the judges leave the court if I walk in.
Well, they told you to get out.
No, I just come in, I sit at the back of the room, and I don't say nothing, and they're just as quiet, as smooth as can be. You never seen courtrooms run so nice. All right. Now, what the government was ordered to do in January of 1998, when we wrote the papers on punctuation, is they ordered that the government put punctuation in the names. We wanted them to put it in upper lowercase like this. But what they did is they capitalized our names. And then they put comma, ETAL, after our names, or ETC, etc. Now what happens when you write your name, let's say when you have military script, Miller, comma, David. The comma breaks up the two nouns. It's punctuation. What's the difference between Miller, comma, David and this with a comma, E-T-A-L, with my new last name?
David Miller, your first name is that Al?
There is no such person. So therefore, I just added something to my name and created me to be a fiction, just like we had fringe to the flag, or a tassel to the flag, or a spear or eagle.
Change the intent.
We change the intent. And by doing so, we then go back to a nom de guerre. Even if they write the name properly, it still destroys it and winds up as a nom de guerre. When if the person doesn't call it, it doesn't enforce it. And that's how I got around it. So, this here was the other thing that they did. Now there's a space and a space, and they said put your middle initial in the box. Or put your middle initial 2 character spaces beyond your name. What happens? When you do sentencing to break up a thought, you always add 2 character spaces. Even though it's what you don't see. It is the invisible that injures you. I just removed my middle name from my name and now it became a fiction, which put me back into a nom de guerre. These are all tricks that they pull on you to kill you on paper. And if you traverse and acknowledge the fact that you are a fiction, you then must be a fiction.
Must you always have your middle name there?
I use, well, not only the middle name. If you wrote your name like this here, now this is an adjective, and this is an adjective of the noun. Therefore, I'm a fiction entity, which means I have to be capitalized. Even with punctuation, I'm called uppercase, I'm still a nom de guerre kid person.
No, like when I want to sign my name, can I just put Jason, full-colon, Zelmer?
Yeah.
Or,
Oh yeah, if you just want to use your first and last name only.
that's okay.
Yeah. And I do that too if I want to remove my middle name like this here, and then I'll just use the full colon.
Just as long as it's...
Now, you have to leave a space after a full colon. You don't just join your names together tight with the full colon in between. And here, where you use punctuation, that's double punctuation. But the W represents, because you put a period, it says that this is an independent noun to represent an independent noun. The full colon is still relevant because the period and the period is punctuation, and it does separate the two nouns. The period is the most important of all punctuations because it ends an idea, it ends something.
So you don't need to hyphenate when you use the period. Your first name.
No, you don't need to colon.
No, your DW is correct up there.
Yes, if you put periods like this here, like A.O. Smith. A.O. Smith was a Mason. He didn't want to give up the secrets. He also knew that. That's where I worked for 26 years. And so the A.O. Smith, he didn't want to say Arthur Allen Smith because it would be an adjective, noun. He used punctuation so that he would be a noun in all 3 cases. He was a sovereign. He knew what sovereignty meant. So there's a lot to be said of how your name is constructed.
So what is, after you said all that,
Proper way is to write it like that.
Would it be proper if it's all capitalized, but punctuated?
No, do not capitalize your name, you'll be a dead person.
So the first 3 are proper.
Yes.
But what I'm saying with punctuation, doesn't matter.
By the way, I applied for a passport. It said you must capitalize your name when you sign up for a passport.
Yeah, I downloaded the form and you have to put each individual letter
In a box. So the box is separate, and under the laws of boxing, removes everything on there, creates a full fiction entity, and you can only travel between nations that are in the bankruptcy as a fictitious entity. So they have jurisdiction in their fiction court, so you have no contract rights, no constitution. You are no more than chattel by applying for your visa, for your for your passport. You can't get around that. They ain't gonna give you the form. The form is entirely boxed. Matter of fact, I have one with me.
How are you gonna go?
Oh, I didn't see.
Do you know where that law is for the punctuation or what it's called?
What was the question?
Do you know where that law is for the function? All documents must be properly punctuated. Do you know where this?
Supreme Court issued that ruling based on our findings. But this here is the application, and what they do, this is the government's application here in this box. Everything on top here, all your name gets boxed, and it says first name, last name, and it says here, type or print all capital letters in blue or black ink in the white areas only.
Turn it this way.
So what they're doing is, they're putting, you won't be able to see it on tape.
Well, you can show it so you can see all the boxes. There's tons.
But because they specifically identify the fact that you must use capital letters, they're showing the fact that they want you dead. They want you obstructed, so that they have control over the situation.
So how you gonna be able to turn?
Well, I carry my gold and silver. I am still a sovereign citizen because I know who I am, and I carry my business card under the law of flag that are punctuated properly under the United States of America. I'll pass them on to you guys.
But I understand what you're saying. Here's me doing this, and I'm getting ready to go somewhere. And I show up to pick up my airline tickets, and they go, "What? You got gold and silver and a business card? You can't go. All right, let you in for it." Wow.
No, they don't take gold and silver.
Still need the passport.
Oh, you still need your passport.
Oh.
Don't forget, you're entered, when you enter, all airports are international.
Right.
They are under international treaties. They are not part of the United States. They have their own police force at international airports. All 250 nation flags fly in a hung position like this in all your airports to advertise that the contract of all constitutions, in other words, this is a symbol of freedom of contract, that when you enter the sanctuary of the airport, that you are entering our contract under our airline ticket. That's your passport, is your airline ticket. You have surrendered your freedom of contract, you've surrendered your flag, and in this sanctuary, all contracts on the planet are null and void. We have our own police force, we have our own jail at the airport, and we can arrest anybody for any reason for disorderly conduct. So, if you're traveling with Jack, or Jack's going to meet you at the airplane, don't say hi, Jack.
Then our customs, are those government regulated or regulated by the airports?
Airports are all regulated, that's an international treaty, because of all the international...
Well, I'm saying like you go to Mexico and then you come back to the United States. You got to go through customs first.
Right.
So is that from our government or the airports? Because isn't customs like a part of...
No, that's under international law. It comes from the UN. They regulate airport traffic.
ICAO treaty.
It's an international treaty.
Aviation Organization. ICAO.
You know, there's a lot of different organizations out there that have been throwing stones at the United Nations and all these UN treaties and that, how everybody wants to fight for their sovereignty. The trouble is they were using verbs to argue their sovereignty. They did a good job of brainwashing everybody. You can't check yourself out of a noun, out of a verb with a verb. That's an oxymoron. There's a guy out there selling a program for $3,800 to get allodial titles of your land. Another guy's charging $3,500 to check yourself out of the system using 16 different forms, all written in verb and box, to check yourself out of the United States. You know what they do? They check these guys in jail and try to do that. I think these are government agents who's going out there to see who wants to leave and who doesn't want to play the game accordingly. And then commit fraud, once you get the fraudulent contracts under Title 18, 641, which is fictitious conveyance of language, fictitious conveyance of government contracts, government documents, then they throw him in jail. So they let these guys hang themselves. Freeman Schweitzer case up in Montana. Schweitzer was running around the country, passed out 2,200 fraudulent documents. He believed he was doing it right because he copied the United States. What he did was he copied a fraud, therefore he himself was a fraud. Even after all the argument took place, he did not want to say he was wrong until they took him my book and they said, well, Mr. Miller says if you put an adverb in front of a noun, it makes it a verb.
Oh,
And all 2,200 of your contracts are fraudulently conveyed language, so therefore you're guilty of fictitious conveyance of language for the extortion of money, both against the government as well as all the 2,200 families he destroyed. He went quietly back to jail.
Yeah, are they still sitting? The Freeman.
There's all sentences of life in prison. Yeah. Now, another little trap that everybody stinks you guys with is your numbers. Let's say that's a serial number that they give you in court. The next correspondence you get back is a motion to dismiss. And it's going to be 99 CB 0123. Well, these hyphens maintain this is a noun, this is a noun, and this is a noun. The hyphens separate those. So these become three independent nouns. Now they've joined these two and dropped this character value. If you punch this in your computer and you look for this number, you're not going to see it if you punch in this number.
Right.
So we just changed and gave you a brand new case number. The next brand new case number you're going to get is CV 123. They're going to consolidate it again. Or they'll go ahead and they'll go 99 CV 00123. Now what do we got? We got an adjective appearing in front of an adjective appearing in front of a noun. There is no such thing as an adjective number, 99. So what they did is they dropped the hyphens here. So every single correspondence is going to change the number. So what happens? When you filed for the complaint, you had to have a complaint and a summons. Summons and complaints always go together. The answer back is answer to this, and they've got 30 days. You accept this to be the answer in this case number, so therefore the summons and complaint doesn't have an answer. Not only that, the answer now filed back to the complaint doesn't have a summons with it. And then the next answer from the judge doesn't have a summons, complaint, or answer. It's just another document filed stuck in the file. So each one of these violates all the procedures of process, service of process, joinder with the lawsuit, and they can continually change this over and over and over again. Now, the next secret comes in. This is what's called character spacing. There are no fractions in law. If you look at a postal serial number, it is 1.1 spaces apart. And you always round up to the next highest space because there are no fractions. So you get your case number. Your case number has an R, that's for registered mail, space, space, 1, 2, 3, space, space, 4, 5, 6, space, space, 7, 8, 9. There's three groups of numbers in a letter. If you go ahead and you remove, when you look at this space, and you type this in your computer, and you hit the return key, when the number returns, when the cursor goes down and returns it, it will shrink this to this, to 1.1 spaces. And if you don't believe me, go home and take your computer and type in three group numbers with 2 spaces between them. And you'll see that there'll be the full 2 spaces of blanks as this thing goes across, and then hit the return key to go to the next line, and it'll pop that number right down to 1.1 between each one of your double spaces. If you put 3 full character spaces in, you will have 2.1 character spaces. It will always reduce 1 character space to a 1 point. Microsoft programs are set up that way. All government computers are set up. The whole program is set up that way. So when an individual looks at the number and he recopies it, he doesn't put the 1/10 of the space in. He only puts one space, creating an adjective, 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 noun, and disqualifies himself from using postal service sovereignty because he filed a fraudulent number. If he files a fraudulent number, he goes back into fiction. His name is nom de guerre, and he goes under the yellow fringe flag. If he files a postal number with the R, double space, and group of numbers as sovereignty noun, he now invokes the postmaster's jurisdiction as a sovereign corporation because he has a noun jurisdictional number. This is a secret that only the postmaster knew about it. Now, the postmaster who put the postal stamp on Little Boy when it was dropped on Hiroshima was the one that gave me the secret. However, he didn't give me the spacing secret. I knew that from all the thousands of hours I spent typing. I'm going, wait a minute, what just happened to my number? I just put a number in there like this that just got shrunk down. So then I pulled up the codes on the computer. It says, well, there was a space there. There was 2 spaces here, but it was only 1 space showing. So then I experimented with different spaces and then looked at the computer codes that represent what those spaces meant. And going, this is son of a gun. Those guys they're playing games with the computers. They've got all the computers programmed to add a fractional space. The computer can see it when it expands it back out again. But the human being who looks at it with the naked eye and does the writing, copying, will not put the space in because he's lazy. He thinks he's got to consolidate the space, and when he consolidates, he shoots himself in the foot. That's why no one ever got through the post office to invoke their jurisdiction to be used for lawsuits.
So the 1.1 disqualifies everything?
No.
It has to be...
It is qualified.
Okay, so it has to be...
What you do is this. When you get your lawsuit finished, that very, very last thing you do before you go to print is you type in your serial number and then you print it. Don't hit the return key. If you cursor down a couple of spaces and then go and hit the return key, you'll lock it in like that with the 2 full spaces. But if you hit the return key, because it's instinctive to always hit the return key, that's what collapses the number.
You want it double space.
You want it with a full double space. So if you type it in last without hitting the return key, it'll show up as a full double space and you'll have your characters locked in.
So is that case number you're talking about, or postal?
This is going to be your registered postal number. This invokes the Postmaster General and the Postal Service as the sovereign corporation that this case is filed with. Now the military is your police force.
So you just put that on your case?
You file your case.
Does it matter what number?
And it doesn't matter, no, you gotta go to the post office and get a registered number applied to your case. You write it in there.
How do you do that?
Got the little blue slips right there in the...
Yeah, you got the blue slips right there.
Well, I don't know.
You know, they've taken them out. A lot of the post offices now, since we went to registered mail in the last 2 weeks, have removed all the registered numbers now from the counters, so you have to ask for them. They want to know why they're being used. Because since this program came out in February, we have upgraded all the postmasters in the United States. They have been studying this technology going, we've got jurisdiction to arrest judges. We've got jurisdiction to arrest everybody. We are the sovereign corporation of America. And all these postmasters were kept dumber and dumber and dumber and dumber.
That's to lose all control.
And that's how you got promoted, by what you didn't know.
I mean, if I got a real problem with somebody, I can just run to the post office and say,
Yes.
here's my paperwork.
But
You file your lawsuit at the post office, registered mail, and they take it to the clerk. The clerk works for the post office. And if you take a postage stamp and you put a postage stamp on the top of your document and you sign your name across the top, how do you know, you got your deer hunting license, you got to sign across it. You got that's issued by the post office. Because the Secretary of Interior is under the Postmaster General. You get a trout stamp, you got to sign across the front. A goose migratory bird stamp, you got to sign across the stamp. It cancels it, makes you the postman, senior court barrister of that license under the jurisdiction of the post office.
You need a legitimate stamp.
Well, yes, you must use at least, there are no fractions in federal law. Because we are dealing with federal lawsuits, and you put a flag on top, there is no state court, there's only federal. There's only federal courts
With
with an American flag. So by you placing the stamp on there, it must be a $1 stamp because there are no fractions in law. Only the dollar stamp has a money sign on it.
That's right. That's why I said they got rid of.
You're a stamp collector.
Yeah, they got rid of all the cents.
Right, because there is no fractions in law.
And now, it said $1, not a $10.75.
No, it's a $1 stamp. I think,
Something with it.
who's on the $1 stamp? It's been the same for 20 years, the $1 stamp. Hamilton's on the $1 stamp.
And you're signing
Your name right across the face of it.
your
And the post office will also put a bullet stamp on the top.
Your
Yes.
name, hyphen, full call.
Yes. And the post office will even put a bullet stamp on top of your cancel your stamp on top of the letter. Now, when you're going to put a lawsuit into a registered envelope to go to the court for filing, the postmaster must see what the letter is. So don't seal the envelope before you go down there and say, I want to send this registered, because they have to have a value on it. If you're going to send along a $150 money order, then it has a $150 value because it's being registered with the post office. So you take the $1 stamp, you put it on the face of your document, put your flag on top of the document, that gives you the contract in the truth, and it's the symbol of freedom of the contract. The post office, which is the sovereign corporation, you've hired them for $1 to make it a legal contract. You endorsed it as the postmaster, and you have joined with the post office. Postal Service, that makes you a postmaster. And you then put in the document, you write the serial number, the registered number, on where it says, this case is filed under a registration number, and you put the registration number on it. Then you put the envelope, it goes into the envelope. The seal, the green sticker, gets placed on the outside of the envelope, and you get the receipt from that. And when they tear that piece of paper apart, the dead torn edge is just like your fingerprint. That is forensic evidence. And every one of those pieces of paper are chemically treated. And it has a forensic chemical treated piece of paper that says you are the possessor of that number. You got to fill that document out. And that document joins this one. And when you glue it to the paper, the glue is absorbed into the paper. So the joinder of the certified mail and the chemicals are also transferred into the envelope. As well as the bullet stamp is a forensic ink also that's changed daily.
Bullet stamp, you mean the little red ink?
Yeah, red circle
Date
stamps.
and where it was from.
And those are circle stamps, they're not box stamps.
Right.
Now, if you get a box stamp, square box stamp that's filed from the court, say, no, that's just in a box, it's been removed, and you haven't filed anything. Your case is thrown out because you got a box stamp on it.
Does this, with your paperwork being as some places were not accepting it, does it now get accepted?
Yes.
In the court? Because of this?
Anybody that refuses to accept their paperwork, you can sue them for fraudulent conveyance, because they are, if they are advertising themselves to be a clerk, they've conveyed themselves to be a fictitious federal government entity, and you go to the U.S. Marshal Service and say, I want that person arrested for impersonating a clerk. Because a clerk under Title 28, Section 1361, must file all papers. And it's in the administrative part of the government where the judges are judicial. And the clerk says, well, I work for the judge. I'm in judicial point of government. That's a lie. They are administrative government. They cannot make determinations over a lawsuit because they've been practicing law without a license. And they are denying you your day in court, your trial by the jury.
So
You cannot use it.
my case is file stamped, but they're all boxed, so it gets thrown out just for that, because they never accepted it.
You can only use this domestically, right?
No, this is international. I go international with my cases.
So you
I can go anywhere in the world with
file
my
a
cases.
lawsuit internationally using this mechanism?
Yes, we have one. We just won a $50.9 million decision in Russia.
No, that was in a court in Russia.
Yeah.
I'm talking about, can you use the postmaster here for an international collection?
Exactly, that's what we did. We took the international, we filed this with the post office in Anchorage, and then took it over to Russia by special courier.
But
Because the post office goes worldwide.
But who was the judgment against?
It's against the United States.
That's what I'm saying, how about a judgment against a foreign entity, a foreign corporation?
You can go against anyone. See, we're still spaceship Earth. We're the rock. And no one's getting off this rock. And so it's one big corporation controlled by the post office. World War II. We're at war with Germany. You want to send a letter to Hitler? Didn't the mail go through? Nobody obstructed the mail.
Raiders leave our mail.
No matter what. The mail went through to communist China, to communist Russia. You send around, go right Mao Zedong a letter right now, and of course the gravesite would. Point is that you go into a communist country and you think you can't get there, postage will go through. It'll be delivered because it's sovereign under a worldwide treaty of all 250 nations. If you can't have communications, then everything breaks down. So you still have to be able to have contract. Freedom of contract has never been obstructed through any treaty on the planet. Now, Iran, for instance, Iraq, they put sanctions against the country. What are the sanctions for? To obstruct contract. They're saying, all right, you're on our spaceship Earth, and you don't want to play by our rules, so therefore you can't make contract with any other planet, any other nation on this planet. Your people can't exist in a desert. Iraq is a desert. You can't grow enough food, you don't have the right steel, you don't have, you've got oil, but you got nothing to run it with because all your machinery is controlled by outside sources. So we are going to deny you your ability to make a contract with everybody if you violate the rest of the rules and regulations of the contract. You can't just have part, you got to take all of it. And so that's what they told Iraq. And so after they've used up all their natural resources inside the country, they have to either die of starvation or sign a treaty to cooperate with the truth of the contract, full disclosure of intent, and go back into the contract realm to have the sanctions removed. They can't practice apartheid, and they can't be guilty of disabilities against the people, which means using nouns as verbs. But then all the people were reading fiction, the laws were written in fiction, treaties were written in fiction, and now they're first learning now about this program. They now have to go back and change everything that's been written in 8,000 years has to be converted. That's a lot of paper. A lot of horse got around.
And papyrus.
Two questions. First one, at times it would seem that the Postal Service works for you. At times it would seem the Postal Service works for you and then it works against you in some ways. And how can they be a sovereign corporation when they represent themselves as the United States Postal Service? And even when they do it, I know they do U.S. Postal but service.
Right, they didn't identify the U.S.
So how can they be a sovereign worldwide when they're presenting themselves as a fiction anyways?
Their language is written in fiction. Their information is presented in fiction because they all went to the same schools as you did. When they went to write the rules and regulations, because the fraud's been going on for 220 years, the only reference they had was fiction reference. So because they didn't know any different and weren't told any different, they have copied. The old phrase is copy a successful person, you be successful. Well, they copied because they were lazy. Jefferson 220 years ago said, the reason for thinking is to abolish thinking. And he was absolutely correct. Because when I go ahead and I put this simple little thing up here, What's the answer? 5.
Right, take, that's not,
And
yeah,
you guys all see.
the most, yeah.
Well, it isn't nothing but brackets, right?
No. No, brackets, here, like I showed you before, you got brackets, you multiply, you divide, you subtract, you add, an order of operation is left to right. That's how it's done. It's done. What's the answer? 4. No. 5.
Oh, it is 5.
4 divided by 4 is 1.
Yeah, I did that.
Quarter of
Zero.
1 plus 4 is 5.
Yeah. fine.
See, what people do is they look at the subject matter, but they forgot that the order of operation comes first in math. And then if we expand this to say 4 plus 4 divided by 4 times 4 minus 4 equals. I did this to an engineer on the plane, he got it wrong. He was an engineer teacher, mind you, and he got it wrong.
See, now,
1.
this confused me because I did this with my math teacher, and she told me I was wrong. I'll do it, but I'll tell you what was told to me.
4.
No,
1.
no.
How much so?
199 out of 200 people get this answer wrong.
Oh, you're gonna, I see.
Guaranteed is to get buy you a free dinner. Just take stuff, write this down to your friend, put it on a napkin or something, say, if you get the right answer, I'll buy you a steak dinner. If you don't get the right answer, I get the steak dinner.
16.
And everybody looks at, oh, it's just simple math. Okay, I'll take the bet.
Divided by 4 is 4.
See,
Minus 16.
this is
Right, you
point
keep coming up with 4. If you do it like this, that's going to give you 4. What's this answer?
What you do is you take your...
The reason we're thinking is to abolish thinking. Now, people are lazy. I'll explain to you why this works and how people get the wrong answer. First order of operation, we have parentheses, we don't have a parentheses, so you have to go with just the sign. First order is multiplication. 4 times 4 is 16. What is the order of operation? Left to right. 4 divided by, next is division. It's not 16 divided by 4, like it is here, 16 divided by 4. It's 4 divided by 16, which is 0.25. Plus and minus cancel each other. 0.25 is the answer.
Yeah.
now why? To me, that's backwards. Now I know your procedure. I know your procedure is correct, but the way that I look at it, because of your order of operation of left to right, I look at that as 4 into 16. But it's,
Procedure comes before correction.
Wow.
yeah, but division.
And this is where the mind
division-
does not want to put down 16 because it took energy to generate it. You got to put it down, pick up the 4, and then bring back the 16.
Look at it.
That's a separate thought pattern, and it creates energy that the mind is irritated.
Look at it the way I look at it, though, okay? I understand the 16, but you said order of operation, left to right. Now, I take that 4 and I say that 4 goes into 16 4 times. But it's backwards, it's 16 into 4.
What's the difference between this? What's the difference between this and this?
No. All right. Write 4 and 16 next to each other. Just for grins. I'll show you what I'm thinking of. And then put 16 next. No, just put 16. Don't even, no division. Then I would put, if we were doing like long division.
What's the difference between this and this?
You're not seeing my point. You're doing it the correct way, but I'm trying to make a point to you.
You ain't gonna make a point for you're trying to do there.
Look at it my way for once. I'm not asking you to do it wrong. I'm just telling you how I see
Wait,
it.
what?
Okay? You take the way you do division, like long division. I would take 4, put it on the outside, and the 16, put it in the box. But the way that it's taught, it's backwards. It's the 16 goes outside and the 4 goes inside.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. is-
But if you're gonna do that, if you're gonna do 16, you mean like this here?
Yes.
Then you gotta add your decimal points, you still get .25.
Yeah, but if you look at an order of operation left, I would assume that it would go on the outside, not on the
It's the
inside.
thinking capacity of what is simple. The mind will grasp onto it, not put it down as a condition. That's what Jefferson said. The reason for thinking is to abolish thinking.
If it was-
We use this exercise because it's the same thing that happens to language. People drop, bust up the prepositional phrases and everything they do. And by breaking up the prepositional phrase using just like the Constitution of the United States, well, they used of America. They took a phrase.
So procedure dominates position, right?
Yes.
That's the rule. That's the rule.
Say they had the prepositional phrase here in the middle of it, but then they split it and they broke them up, making two adverbs out of it. And there's no such thing as a Constitution verb and an American verb. And then to further insult the image, the word that followed the prepositional phrase was a noun, but it's a past tense noun which doesn't have any present tense jurisdiction, even if you were to hyphenate it. So what they did is when they removed that, they said united was an adjective in all the dictionaries. Because the Constitution was used as an adjective to brainwash the people, but this says it has to be a noun, so it had two identities. They didn't just commit one fraud, they committed the whole thing to be a fraud. This was supposed to be an article, they called it an adverb. This was supposed to be a noun, they made a verb. This was a prepositional phrase, which made this a noun, which now became an adjective. This was a noun by itself, so it had fiction state with the adverb, making America a verb. They completely obstructed the whole program. And then people wanted to go ahead and stand up there and say, I have constitutional rights, and the judge says, don't tell me you got constitutional rights in my courtroom, I'll hold you in contempt. Wait, now what did I do wrong?
So
And the judge knew this program of the Constitution, of the unities
States.
of the America. Now you've got three prepositional phrases for three nouns. Now you've got authorization. And you know what? The post office has adapted my technology. Even the United Nations is going to global-union October 1st. Yes?
Still didn't answer the question of how is the post office still sovereign when they represent themselves as fiction?
Because they haven't filed bankruptcy. It's all about money. It's about making honorable your debt. The intent of the post office is to be sovereign.
No, isn't the post office is part of our government. Now, when our government filed bankruptcy, how did the post office not go along with it?
Because the post office was there before the government was formed. Only the government, Washington, D.C., 10 square miles went bankrupt, not the post office. They're international. It's an international organization controlled by Rome. The 1 square mile of the Vatican is a sovereign nation within Italy. It's like Washington, D.C. is to the United States, Rome is to the world. It was an independent sovereign corporation.
So the Constitution only contracted the post office as part of
The Constitution, the post office was here long before the fiction they created.
But they incorporated the post office to run through Washington, D.C. and all 50 states.
The bankrupt corporation cannot rule anything. They say they created a law that says the Postmaster General is appointed by the President of the United States. The President of the United States is the trustee. He is the bailment manager trustee of the bankruptcy for Rothschild, who controls the post office through England. England is controlled by the Vatican. The Vatican pulls the strings as the Illuminati for the Postal Service worldwide. It's all under international treaty. Regardless what the religions were of all the other countries, it still comes down to the sovereign corporation of the post office functions as a behind-the-scenes using both religion and political foundations as puppets for their tax collection, which is no more than a postage stamp. They take and the bills of the taxes on bills of lading and shipping, because commerce is going to move continuously worldwide. They get a kickback on every single thing that moves, from the waitress that brings your lunch and hands you a bill of lading to say, I am the vessel that just transported the product to the table. I take my state, federal, and gratuity taxes out. You got $5 for the food, but after you pay your taxes and your gratuity, your tip and everything else, the post office gets a kickback.
So all roads still need to run.
All roads, yes, that's why the coin phrase, all roads are, they are wrong. Because of the post office. It's all about learning who is the sovereign corporation, who is the Illuminati. The Illuminati were above the law because they were the ones pulling the strings on it. But they couldn't afford to have anybody exposed in this program. So anyone that stepped out of line and gave up a secret got killed. They weren't going to have a trial and expose everybody. Even the judges, the ones that play with the sovereign, they wanted to violate the code of secrecy of the fraud, because the fraud was so entrenched for 8,000 years. Every single piece of paper on the planet, anybody stands up and exposes a fraud, was immediately eliminated. So the question is, why do I get to stand here and give you guys this lecture?
Yeah.
How come I get to go around the whole world and make this whole thing, and how come nobody interferes with me? I got protection.
Because you're in the Illuminati.
Would you do one more thing on names?
Sure.
Your signature, please.
Oh yeah, signature.
I have a question after that.
Yeah, what is it today?
Like that.
You're backwards.
Okay, so you got a hyphen.
Still use your
Copyright in the truth. Can you sign your name? Copyright underneath it.
And you've got a colon in here?
Does that
You
matter?
know what?
That's your document. Nobody can say your document is fraud.
I just copyrighted my name. And my document, no matter what condition it's in, is protected under the laws of copyright. You want to come after me and say, that's your signature, you better have my release first before you can use my signature. Only I can identify my copyright as my signature.
You put that on the bottom of a case?
Yes, every single page of my book is signed copyright and signature.
If you're sending a case to the court using registered mail, you put that on the bottom of it, accepted.
Yep.
You'll have to use that under your signature and on each page of your document.
Well, when you sign on the page, it also incorporates.
So are you
Yeah.
saying, what about signing a check?
When you sign your check, the right word copyright underneath your name. That way that's
And
your
also
check.
you've got a hyphen there and a colon? Is that?
Yes.
Okay. But you've built that into your signature now.
Yes.
So now our registered signatures are going to be, we're going to have to go get them changed if we do that at the bank?
If you want to, that's, your discretion, but
Basically, punctuation change on the page.
Yeah, but it changes the looks of your signature.
Does that say David?
But that's right, we would have to, if we wanted to do that, we'd have to re-register that signature? Do you think?
yeah.
You think
I
so?
got mine registered as such.
Wouldn't you, do you have to do that everywhere? Or do you only have to do it once and then it's just copyright?
No, every time you sign your name.
Every time you sign your name.
And how about on the face of a credit card or something like that, you would change the name that way too?
They won't do it.
Well, then, so this is better than all rights reserved.
And a notary stamp.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Make my crunch.
For the rights.
I thought you talked about notary public for a minute.
It would be for the rights are of the reserving. Actually.
But my stamp has no box.
You know what? I didn't bring any of
My
my
name is hyphen.
I got it.
For any business
Hey, did you grab them? Oh.
Good man, good man.
Yeah, see, my I think
Yeah, good change.
I'll replace that. See how my name is punctuated? When I go into court, I immediately walk up there and I pass out my business card to the bailiff, to the clerk, to the judge. And what have I done? I've just captured the court under law of the flag. I said, this is how I spell my name, folks. I pass this all out, and they're all sitting there holding this card. They don't realize that I just put America's flag up on all levels of jurisdiction.
You only need
I
one.
walked into a hotel the other night, and I said, I'm here on business. The guy says, well, you got to prove to me you're here in business. And I pulled out my business card, and he goes, I know who you are. You're Dave Miller. I know that card. He said, it's been a long time since I've seen you. He said, yeah, you get the business rate.
Well, what does the LAW stand for? Ever comment on that?
Learn and win. But we just took the periods. I don't know if it's statistics. Put the periods on there.
Periods are still there?
Oh, okay. Yeah, but we dropped it now just as law because I copyrighted law, procedures. And so that makes it very unique.
But that's your business name.
That's my business name.
Yeah.
So it's copyrighted. Yes.
You were saying that even on a personal check, you spell your name like that and write copyright underneath. On the bottom of the checks where my name is, there's initials on the bottom.
There's what?
There's initials on the line that I signed my name on. So does that falsify my name then?
Who put the initials?
There's MP at the bottom of my check line.
If it's mechanically printed, it's not a signature.
Doesn't that change
Blue ink or black ink?
Doesn't that change the intent of it?
No.
Putting an MP on the line that you sign?
That means that the person who designed the checks, that was his creation. That was probably, if he doesn't have a safe with a circle around it next to those initials, that's not a copyrighted check.
No, what I'm saying, doesn't that add initials to my name?
No.
Just like the comma.
No, because their signature is unique.
And if you normally wrote your signature with initials, then the period would replace the colon.
Right. All right, it's 1 o'clock. You guys want to do lunch or you want to push on or it's your pleasure?
With lunch break. Short one.
Take an hour lunch break.
I don't need that
Like I said,
much.
I'm curious about notary here.
No, he prosecutes. And after we did this several times, the government says, well, why don't we just wait? Miller will go ahead and bring out a new procedure, disqualify the stuff that we don't know what to do with, and leave us off the hook. He's our best case scenario to get out of trouble. And so this has been going so the judges always keep me free and protected. At the same time, we're prosecuting them. Because they're learning what goes on above it. The lower court judges come to me and they say, no, that was really great what you wrote. We read your book. We didn't know what the district court did. We didn't know what the tricks and traps were. We didn't know what the Supreme Court was doing in the Court of Claims or the Court of Appeals. And all of this stuff has been exposed now. So now we know how to accept a lawsuit at level 1. Because if you're filing a lawsuit in municipal court, in my paperwork, they are already court-sealed, unchanged, to go through district court, through municipal court, circuit court, district court, Court of Appeals, Court of Claims, and the United States Supreme Court, and then go internationally. You have to have your T's crossed, your I's dotted in a perfected technology with your absolute first filing, so that is as qualified as a Supreme Court document on the top. And our documents don't get hung up in the system. They are cycled every 72 hours. You can move from a municipal court to the United States Supreme Court in as short of a time as 4 months, as long of a time as 4 months, or as short of a time as just a couple of weeks, depending how fast the other courts. You walk in Monday, before you got back to the court, as you filed it, there's a cop standing there with your lawsuit in hand to give it back to you. It's been unfiled. We don't want this in our court. That tells you flat out they're terribly scared about what you just did. Ken spent $1,000 on an airline ticket from San Francisco, flew to Washington, D.C. to go through the filing process of the United States Supreme Court case. He finally got it paid for. He tried to file it 3 times and was rejected. So I called one of my people up to the Supreme Court. I told her to go see Mrs. Brown. He went over to see Mrs. Brown. got his file, got a receipt immediately, got on his plane, and when he landed in San Francisco, we drove up to his house, and when we got there was a sheriff with his lawsuit, all boxed up, from the Supreme Court. It says, here. He goes, how did you get here before me? They put it on a military transport, F-17, and flew it all the way across the country to get it home to him before he got home.
Well,
It's just totally blown out of the water. And he says, well, your stuff don't work. So then I flew out there to San Francisco, I had to do a seminar. And he brings me the lawsuit. It's 40% fraud. I says, of course it doesn't work. I said, you took Zero Society, Right-Way Law, Lynn Meredith, Risa Habeas Corpus from the court systems, and my technology, and threw it all together as a toss salad, and you wanted it to fly. And the Supreme Court knows what procedure is. They know how to stay on point with one subject. And so therefore, it wasn't acceptable. Stay on point, one subject.
Focus.
Focus. Simple. It's so simple it's invisible.
Yeah.
Is the Supreme Court done in a common law style? Now, I know it's under a foreign fringe, but I've seen that all the judges are on equal ground with you.
When I go to the Supreme Court, they are because of contract. The way the contract is formulated, it says that they are in the truth. Well, I'm in the truth too, so therefore there can't be a deception. Either they all have joined or in the truth, or it doesn't exist. They can't use a yellow fringe. Now, February 12, 1999, the Hawaiians filed a lawsuit at the United States Supreme Court. 3 days later, that was Presidential Day, February, that Tuesday following, 9 Supreme Court judges in common law were appointed to an Article 3 court on the second floor of the Supreme Court in secret session to review the sovereignty issue of the Hawaiian people. They had 60 days by which to give an answer. On the 59th day, they issued an order saying that King Kamehameha used English attorneys in 1848 and wrote the allodial title rights and treaties of Hawaii in verb, disqualifying the king's claims, the kingdom of Hawaii, and all the language using my technology under fraud. Even though the lawsuit was properly put together, the lawsuit itself disqualified every treaty, trust, and contract between King Kamehameha and the world, leaving the Hawaiian people not a sovereign people, but under conquered nation status. The original Hawaiian people were genocide by the original Hawaiians, who were 6'6", 6'8", ran 300 pounds. When they landed in Hawaii from the Polynesians, down in around the Philippines, they came ashore with 20-foot-long bamboo spears. And they formed a line. These guys were big giants, 6'6", 6'8". They formed a line of 2,500 warriors that marched from one side of the island to the other side of the island and killed every man, woman, and child on the island. So that the Hawaiian pure blood would never be contaminated by any foreign blood. It didn't matter who was on the island, everyone was genocide. So because they practiced genocide, the Hawaiian people conquered the island and killed everyone. Then they set up their own government, and they had 600 years of peace until Cook showed up there. Half the population was wiped out by disease, just from the initial contact, because they had no disease on the island. Later, when the English came over with their courts, and the population had been so badly infiltrated and crossbreeding had taken place, the King Kamehameha passed a law that said any Hawaiian over 25% Hawaiian remaining would get this land. Each got 5 acres. Today there's 1,800 descendants for that same 5 acres. There's over 52 separate sovereignty groups in Hawaii still claiming the same original land. So when the court met, they said that all the people in Hawaii are, even though they're born in Hawaii, of full Hawaiian blood, and the United States has kept a record of every living Hawaiian since 1848. And I've seen the computer printout, it's 8 inches thick, containing 860,000 names. The person responsible for that printout just happened to be across the street from the lady, she was in charge of this as a paralegal for the Hawaiian people under the Kingdom of Hawaii. She lived directly across the street from Oliver, who was his aunt. She was like 90 years old. And so as fate would have it, they brought me over to Maui on June 6, 1950. June 8, 1997. When I got to Maui, a very strange thing happened. While RJ went to get the truck, I'm sitting at the park bench and I got a wild female sparrow flies out of a palm tree and lands on my right index finger. For the next 2.5 hours, I'm walking around with a wild female sparrow. The Hawaiians were there to witness this. They tell the story around the whole Hawaiian island about the white man that came from across the sea with a bird and set the Hawaiians free. It's a tale that goes back over 150 years in the Hawaiian nation. That someday white men will come with a bird and set us free. And I was that person because I wrote the lawsuit that night after meeting with the chiefs. We went over the Hawaiian Homeland Act treaty, and I sat down at the computer and in 2 hours drafted a lawsuit that was sent to the World Court in The Hague by the ambassador of Hawaii, the Kingdom of Hawaii, and we won at the World Court 15-0, giving the Hawaiians a sovereignty. But that, before the English came out, that was just on the procedure of the preposition to and the nom de guerre of the name. Afterwards, when we came out with articles and all the other forms of speech, where the program is today, it disqualified the sovereignty of Hawaii. Because even the World Court didn't know how to read and write 2 years ago, until this program came out. So this thing is revolutionizing the way courts are set up worldwide. And it's still, the United States now has acknowledged a support group in Hawaii consolidating all 50 of the Kingdom of Hawaii nations into one group. It's just been formed in the last, I think 3 months ago now it's been, since this lawsuit came back. Now that was a Matthew Nyman's lawsuit.
So where's the status now? They've got
It's just getting together. They're just getting all these people together from all the different groups on the language issues. And my videotape has been played in Hawaii since January 6, 1998. Going on its almost 20th month now in Hawaii. I've been running on Thursdays on PBS TV. All Hawaiians who watch it have been studying it or using this technology. They've been given the new updates on the books. They're faxed. As fast as this technology comes out, we fax it to Hawaii and it gets distributed amongst all of the Hawaiians. So they're getting together on January 8, 1999, in the year 2000. I'm going to Hawaii to do another law seminar. This one's supposed to be big because of all the different people that are involved with all the different factions. This will be very well organized and well publicized. It's going to be on the Big Island. So this is, there's a lot of different organizations, different things are happening. We're working currently with 12 of the nation's tribes, the Shoshones in Wyoming, the Arapaho, the Chippewas, it was up in Wisconsin, Cherokees, Blackfeet, up in Black Hills. We got Cherokees and Crow, no, not the Crow, the Mohawks in New York State, up by Niagara Falls area. We've got the Navajos and Hopi Indians down in Mexico and Arizona. They're all working with the treaties, international with the treaties, and they have sovereign nation status. And they can pick their own ambassadors to the tribal council using this technology to correct all the treaties that they're existing with the United States and then file the World Court for protection. So they're onshore, offshore jurisdiction. You don't have to go offshore with a trust. You can go to any one of the Indian nations and file your lawsuits or your trusts onshore with the Indians because they have sovereignty onshore. And then you don't have to worry about any interference from anybody.
Wouldn't this be their nation then, or it just makes them sovereign?
They have their sovereignty on the reservations, the Indian reservations.
Well, I'm saying, wouldn't this
Even up in Wisconsin,
wouldn't this
when I
just
drive
play-
up and down the state, I drop off my books at the tribal council, and the tribal council meets, and the people are getting together to study this stuff. So
what I'm saying is, wouldn't this just plain be their nation then? Because they were here before we were.
well, they were here before us, but then it comes down to a point of organization. There's a lot of other factors involved here. And when you get into a treaty and how complex the treaties are, they have to be written in the noun jurisdiction, which is where they're learning to correct what is wrong and get back some of the information that was lost in translation.
They're not the defeated nation status, like they've been.
Well, they've been under conquered nation status until now, but then when the United States entered into the treaties were fraudulently based. Because the United States attorneys wrote the treaties and just had the Indians put their X on it and sign it, they didn't understand what was going on. Few of the tribes had their Indians go to law school. They were sent to our universities, educated in the white man's tongue, which was fraud. Then they went ahead and said, well, the intent of this treaty seems to be right, the chief signed it. And when the chief signed it, he was giving misinformation from somebody who was bought off. And so because the misinformation can now be certified as fraudulent with technology, it disqualifies it. And now they have to write a brand new one. This thing has got disqualified over 68,000 international treaties worldwide.
So the Indian tribes are not defeated nations.
No, not anymore. They were just under trickery. You are not defeated by trickery.
The treaty ends the conquered nation status, because it's a contract, right?
Yep.
And it says what the status is after the hostilities are over.
Right, because the hostilities have never been ended.
So what's the difference
Right.
between them and Hawaii?
What's that?
What's the difference between the Indian tribes and Hawaii? You said Hawaii.
Hawaii was a separate nation, and the United States was invading along with Japan and the Philippines. 33% of the population in the Hawaiian Islands is Japanese. 30% are Philippines, from the Philippine nation. 8% of the population of Hawaii are Hawaiians, and the balance is Americans. But because Americans hold the predominant military force there, they're in control, just because of they got the power. What are you doing? Giving a chair back? This is that's broken. It's all back. It'll fall right off. Just sit on a record chair.
Sit on there with the building back.
Because it made it easier. That's what you can do.
All right, what we're going to go over is how to write a sentence. Most people always shoot themselves in the foot on how to construct a sentence properly. Now, in any sentence, you got to put a date or any contract, and you have to put a place, which is your venue. Now, the venue tells that, like you got a traffic ticket out here in Clearwater, you couldn't go up to Milwaukee, Wisconsin and fight it. You have to stay in your jurisdiction. Same thing when you get married and you get a divorce. Your divorce either has to be filed where your residency takes place. You got married here in Clearwater, but then moved to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, set up residency for 6 months, your divorce would be granted there. Las Vegas, Nevada is the only other place in the United States where you can go on the spur of the moment, get an immediate divorce, and divorce in 72 hours. Reno and the whole state of Nevada is that way. But there's nobody lives in Nevada except in those two cities. You got Reno and Las Vegas and Mesquite.
Desert, cactus, groundhog.
So you first got to establish your time and place. The next thing you have to do is you have to establish knowledge. So it's for the plaintiff. There's your verb of the knowledge. Under Title 42, U period, S period, A period, codes. Section 1986. For the knowledge of the law in the truth. Now what this says, this section right here, I'm going to underline it. Excuse me, under the
And neglect.
Huh?
And neglect. At the end.
No,
You want to see?
no, we don't do that. That's been removed.
Oh yeah, that's negative. So.
Negative law. Okay, now, this here portion of it gives you knowledge, which means you know the difference between right and law, right and wrong. In the truth is possessive, and law now becomes a condition of man, what we all agreed to by contract. When you incorporate this phrase, individuals stand up and say, well, Mr. Miller, you just declared to be all the United States titles fraud, codes fraud, dictionaries fraud, encyclopedias fraud. If all communications are fraud, then what authority are you declaring in 42, 1986 Code, Section 1001, Section 1986 for? I said, well, United States Codes is unpunctuated, so united is an adjective of states, which is an adjective, codes becomes a noun. Or titles, United States titles, same thing, adjective, noun. I punctuated, which makes this a compound noun. It's a full noun with proper punctuation, and I copyrighted the noun, so I own the noun. Then I went ahead and changed the definitions. The definition in the original fraud said, for stopping, for not stopping and correcting the wrong, period. Not was an adverb making stopping a verb. Adverbs modify the verbs. And was a conjunction, neutral. Correcting was now a verb also. The was an adverb making wrong a verb, period. Dangling participle verb. Therefore the sentence had no assignment of authority. And because you can't have a wrong that's a noun, or even I think some of my read where it says of the wrong in different versions, depending on published. If they made wrong a verb, there's no condition of state as a verb, or stopping or correcting. They're not conditions of states, they're verbs. They don't have any subject matter jurisdiction. If you made wrong a noun, it's now being defined as stopping and correcting. If the definition of the noun is a verb, stopping and correcting, it's also a fraud because you can't have a wrong verb. It's impossible. You can't have a wrong verb. So by definition, they created a trap within the language once you identify the procedure. Don't look at the words. Identify the procedure and then go ahead and identify the words. Like the question. This is not part of the sentence. Where is the pen? The pen is blue. Answer the question. The pen is blue. Where is the pen?
There is no pen.
There is no pen. This is an adverb. Modifies the verb. Thus, the adverb is the verb. Pen becomes a noun, and the adverb modifies the pen verb. First off, there's a pen verb here, and there's a pen verb here. Show me a blue verb. There is no such thing. But if you said, where is of the pen, now it's a prepositional phrase making pen a noun. I've got a noun, a verb, and a prepositional phrase. Now I've got a proper sentence. Down here, for the pen is of the blue. Now I have an assignment of authority because blue in this case was no more than an opinion because it didn't have a prepositional phrase, lacked authority. Or for the blue is of the pen. Frontwards and backwards, it still says the same thing. And in both cases, when you said it frontwards and backwards, and I'll go ahead and I'll put that in here for the camera. For the pen is of the blue, or for the blue is of the pen. See, frontwards and backwards, these prepositions are the same. You reverse them when you reverse the sentence.
What about when
We move the nouns. If we move the verbs, you can go for the pen is for the blue is for the pen.
You said to correct the top one where it is of the pen. You can leave where
It's
by
an assignment of authority.
So
You should have at least 3 prepositions if you want to do it in more complete format. In other words, for the pen of the blue is for the writing. See, because now we have 2 prepositional phrases, for and of, going towards and in from is an assignment of authority. Once we go past the verb, we then go back to a for again. But you can't, because we're using 2 fors, it doesn't sound right because there's no assignment of authority. Yes?
To use the prepositional phrases in front of the verb is, for instance, that move toward the verb, and then anything beyond the verb
It's going towards the end of the sentence.
moves from.
It moves from the verb, but if you're going to use 2 phrases, you must always move towards the phrase. For the driving of the car is for the knowledge of the driver. Or by the knowledge of the
Preposition
driver.
is saying move toward the verb at the beginning, in
Right.
front of the verb, and move away from the verb, so to speak.
After the fact, as a sign of authority. But as long as you stay with your present tense verbs, you must choose your right present tense verb. And there are many interchangeable ones that do fit the condition, for and with. You can say, with the pen is of the blue, or with the blue is of the pen.
How
That's-
do you write something in the negative?
You can't make negative contract. Don't even try it. Because you will disqualify. All negative is an adverb. You can use the word neglect. You can use the word breach. Now take the word violation, T-I-O-N. It's a hard noun. But a violation contains 3.5 pages of definitions. Which violation are you going to make determination before the facts? See, violation is a conclusion. Breach, however, is a very unique word. It only has one definition. That you had agreed to a contract and then broke it. So therefore, if you use the word breach when you identify the court not following the contract, you were very specific that the rules and regulations were outlined in contract form between 2 individuals in positive law. And because you're in the positive scenario, you are in control, and you can't bring any outside information into the contract that you're suing for breach of. Only the terms inside the contract can be upheld because that was all the information supplied. And where do you go and where do you fight it? You fight it in the sanctuary of the bar.
So by using the term violation, it's just too big of a catch-all, there's too many.
Right, like the word united. What is a united? It's a past tense joiner, but it's in past tense, there's no present tense jurisdiction. They were very clever about the words they used. They sat down and used deductive reasoning when they did this constructed these international contracts, so that they would never say anything. I mean, I get contracts brought to me where the whole entire page, 400 words, doesn't contain a single noun. How do you write sentences for 400 words unless you are very, very careful about obstructing? That's not an accident to write a 400-word paragraph and not have a single noun in it. That takes a lot of talent. And when we did the lawsuit in Nevada, the very first one we filed, we didn't have one judge reject the lawsuit. We had all 10 federal district court judges in the state of Nevada get together and have a meeting that lasted 3 days over this lawsuit. They all signed the document in a big long thing and included all 10 of their signatures. Your lawsuit cannot be filed in the state of Wisconsin, in the state of Nevada. Do not attempt to refile it in any other court because we are all rejecting it altogether at once. Get out of our state with this technology. Never in Nevada's history have all 10 judges signed the same document at the same time. And the guy that had it, I'm going, hey, you got to be impressed. You did something so right that scared them all. He said, where do I get a remedy? Well, his lawsuit now is going to be moved over to Russia. It's already been reconstructed, brought up to the present day, and we also have all the forensic evidence found with 10 judges' signatures, which is really, really embarrassing to look at that. This is going over the Yeah.
There was something that I talked to some people once, and I thought they brought up a pretty good point, was that the point of this is to bring everything into an absolute truth, you know.
Right, absolute saves man.
But everything that we do, every word that we use is only an assumption of what we believe its definition to be. Now, you just said there was only one definition of breach. There's also a breach on a gun, though. So it was only your assumption that you knew what breach meant. Now, it does kind of make things confusing, but what is the basis?
Because you brought in for the breach of the contract. It's a prepositional phrase.
But
You're making a statement that is concluded within the sentence where the breach is of the contract.
oh, okay, that's where you're thinking.
If you said for the breach is of the gun, now I've clearly defined through an assignment of authority what breach I'm talking
Okay,
about.
that makes sense. But there is a lot of words. I mean, even bracketing. If you look up bracket, it's got at least a dozen different definitions. I mean, one of those fits our criteria of
Exactly, we are being highly defined, and you must define what it is you're saying.
And that is the purpose of the thinking, to define
Right,
what
2
you're
plus 2
saying.
equals 4.
No, it doesn't.
Modifying phrases, using additional phrases to define. FORE.
And then you got F-O-R-E, F-O-U-R, and of course the number. So you got 4 fours, and then you've got 2, 2, and 2, and you got 4 twos. So when you write it, there's 2 plus 2 equals 4, there's 26 combinations you can create. And then you also got 8 plus 8 equals 16. See, I mean, there's a dozen ways you can create that also. Or 4 plus 4 equals 8, ATE. So did you hear what I said, what I meant, what I said, what I said, what I meant, what I said? You cannot win an oral argument. Your oral argument is as good as the paper is written on. Remember that.
It's like your verbal
In
contract.
Cincinnati, Ohio, across the halls of justice at the Cincinnati Law School, it says your oral contract is as good as the paper is written on. Which means don't talk to people. Write it down. Make your wants known. Define what you say. Use your punctuation. You don't speak in punctuation. Define your words. Be exact. Be as absolute as you're supposed to be. A very unique thing happened the day I was in the Cincinnati Law School. We're walking through the halls of justice, and there's about 20 different grand masters, judges. And they're all wearing necklaces, going all the way back to the 12th century in England. And then once you got past 200 years, everything was in painting. And the same symbols appeared in different forms, depending on their achievements and their rank. But one symbol was found on all of the necklaces. And so as a senior law professor was walking through the hallway, I said, "Excuse me, sir, I said, you work here?" He says, "Yes, I do." I says, "I'm a law professor." I said, "What does that symbol mean?" He just turned, just exploded, went red like a book. And he says, "Are you an attorney?" And he goes, "No." He says, "Security, get these people out of the building, they're trespassing." Just because they asked the question. The wrong question to the right person. It was Iron Cross. German Iron Cross. This was some. They also, many had swastikas on their things. Some had the Star of Solomon. Some had, I counted over 22 different symbols altogether in the necklace with the various ranks. But they were senior judges, senior masons, lodge members, Templar Knights, Scottish Rites, depending on what the organization was, to become the judge. So they were all tied. This was on their necklaces. They showed groups of judges, and only the one had the necklace on the center figure. And then if you look at kings from England going all the way back 1,500 years, you see the same necklace, along with many of the similarities that were worn by those men as well, even in the popes, France, Germany, Russia. They all have these elaborate, they all wear the same double ring or double bar necklace. And all these symbols are on that. It doesn't matter where the judges go around the planet, even in China, India, this order of this symbolisms are carried around the world in all the religions. So there is an organization, very quiet organization. Okay, so now once you establish an assignment of knowledge, then you have to identify your injury. For the injury, by the neglect of the not the neglect. Huh?
Oh, I thought you were talking about the title, sorry.
No, for the injury.
If you use the word failure, is that a negative? Then you can't use it, or should use it?
No, you're going to be speaking in positive terms. You can't tell anybody what they didn't do for the neglect or failure. You can only contract for the truth and continue to sue for the conclusion of that truth. Anyone who doesn't comply with it must join in the fiction by confession. You only can prosecute by confession. If they won't confess, then you don't have a condition. You have a default. You have time and you have default. If they default on performance, then you've won. In other words, they are out of the picture. They have to pay the bill, and you go on to the next individual.
So the injury is never for the drug.
They respond in a certain amount of time.
Did you have something judgment?
What was that?
Did you have for the injury is by neglect of so-and-so?
The officers of...
We removed that. I'm going to give it to you, this one I'm doing now. For the injury is, here's your verb, under the Title 18, USA Codes, Section 1001 and 1002. Now, in the entire laws of the Americas, there is only one lawsuit you can file as a sovereign citizen against its government for the fictitious conveyance of language, for the extortion of rights or privileges. That is all. Because 100% of all the laws written, without any exception, are using nouns as verbs. The language is fictitious, so therefore you can't possibly understand anything that has ever been written or spoken in America. So therefore the clerk can only file one lawsuit and ask for fictitious conveyance of language. That's why we were able to shorten the books up and dump all the negatives, all the negligence, everything, because we sued in the truth for fictitious conveyance.
This is why the judge asks you, do you understand the charges against you?
Right. And if you understand the fiction, then he has full jurisdiction because you're a fraud, because you can't possibly understand fiction.
So once you have the knowledge, you understand the fraud.
Then you can say, Your Honor, we have corrected the language of your charges, and we are now prosecuting you for fraudulent conveyance of language. This is going to federal district court. Just as well, I'm not going to hear that, okay? No, sir, we're going to stand on our pleadings. I dismissed that, sir. Okay? No, sir, I'm going to stand on my original pleadings. I'm moving forward under my complaint, prosecute for fraudulent conveyance of language. You don't seem to understand. I've dismissed it. I'm going to hold you in contempt. oh, Your Honor, are you asking me to commit, are you asking me to join in a conspiracy to obstruct justice, to use fraudulent conveyance of language, commit mail fraud, perjury against this court? Well, if the judge is ordering me, then I hereby join with the court in its fraud. I demand to go before the grand jury to name my co-conspirators for the obstruction of justice, fraudulent conveyance, mail fraud, and, but then he goes, what are you here for, sir? He says, I don't have a lawsuit in front of me. He says, I don't know what we're here for. Get out of my courtroom. Case dismissed. Because you knew the secret to join and then go before the grand jury to name your co-conspirators in the case. Case discharged. Yes?
Don't you have to do a 60B and a 26E too? After 2?
Yeah.
Should be a part of
I'm
it.
just, all right. Yeah, we went from knowledge into
Kind of skip the...
injury, but before you can get there, you have to take the federal rules in the truth. Let's do it this way. Under the FRCP, Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, 60B, that's for discovery, and 26E for reporting.
Is it reporting or correcting or just reporting?
Just reporting to the judge what truth is. So that's what you've done. You've corrected their fiction, you reported with knowledge to the court, and now you are declaring that you've been injured because you have a fraudulent document that constituted an injury. And then the fourth thing here is by the respondent. And that could be the respondent judge or DA or sheriff or clerk. So it could be anybody that's in a fiduciary position that obstructed the use of language in fiction.
When you write your material, I notice you're writing in all capital letters.
I just block print. It's for speed.
That's all.
It's a condition, right? It takes too long to write lowercase.
Then you have the discovery in 26E. 26E?
26E, yes.
And what's the last word?
Reporting. It's reporting of the facts. You're reporting or reporting of the fraud
26E.
is for the reporting of the fraud.
Okay, that's your complaint.
That's it. One sentence.
Okay, so to go through the mental process here, you're establishing the date, place. Where's the jurisdiction question? Isn't that what's supposed to be?
Jurisdiction questions are already incorporated in the document under Title 28, Section 1331, original jurisdiction for the court, under law of the flag, which brings it under freedom of contract, and then names the clerk under Title 28, 1361 for the assignment of authority to do the filings, to then give it to the bailiff, who is the senior court barrister, who is the sheriff. They're all the same person, which then is carried to the judge to do the service of process, returned back to the court, process of the service, and then the unit is complete. That everyone's been told what the case is about, and then it can be scheduled for court. The judge then assigns it a date. The clerk then mails it to the person who filed the lawsuit, and you're all set.
Is this in your book? Is this in the book that you...
Yes, it's already outlined in the book, under the draft of the court.
That belongs up there though too, right?
That does, no, this is just the structured sentence. It's how we're doing your structured sentence.
So none of this really gets into any of the details of something that happened.
How can you understand the detail of the cup, the glass, the table, and the chair? They're all verbs. How can you understand the detail of the verb? You can't. So you only sue them for one thing. Title 1001. Fictitious conveyance of language.
Isn't that more
Title
so?
18, section.
Isn't that more so to say that it's your starting point? There's many others that fall under depending on what they do with the case.
Beyond that.
It's only one case.
No, I'm saying,
Well, there's other things that take place once the fiction's been
Like,
established.
this
The
is-
fact that they get together and they cover up the fiction, that forms up your conspiracy. Then they change the flag, which is deprivation of rights under color of law, Title 18-242. Then they go ahead and act under criminal conspiracy and join together under Title 18-241. Because they're all acting together now, they're an accessory after the fact under Title 18 U.S.C. 3. If they put you in jail, it's misprision of a felon under Title 18 U.S.C. 4. And so this thing just gets deep.